so she's ahead of time gonna axe it. Okay. Yeah. There's. How are we doing? It looks like we might be back. Might be back.
Let me go to Twitch and see if I can see your.
I'm not dropping any frames. I've got a green thing here. That's weird. Look like internet just yoinked out. All right. It goes to say, Chad, doesn't matter where you live, you're always gonna hate your internet provider. It doesn't matter where what you do. All right.
Yeah, you're back. I can
Okay,
see you.
sick.
You're good.
All right. So we were talking about McCree. I guess we just started talking about McCree.
Yes.
And basically, my thought process with McCree is well balanced, somewhere between high skill floor, high skill ceiling, high value floor. So the reason why I'm gonna give McCree like a 2.5, and I think that's gonna be a little bit of a hot take on skill floor. The reason why is because I believe McCree is one of the heroes who really is just aim, or more so than other heroes. Obviously exaggerating a little bit here. Obviously positioning, cooldown usage, those things are still relevant. Ultimate usage as well. But I think his kit and his ultimate are one of the simplest in the entire DPS roster, actually, in terms of use. Roll is relatively mobility, defensive, reload. Flash is, again, very, very basic, extremely straightforward. And his ultimate is a little tricky. There's things that you can do in it, and you need to know how to use it properly. But again, it's not hard to understand. I think he's one of the heroes that's literally just, I need to know how to click heads, I need to know how basic positioning rules, and then I'm good. And so for me, that's a 2.5. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think 2.5, it sounds fair, although my mind also kind of went 2 because of the muck right click flashbang factor.
Yeah, that's true.
I think because I see a lot of it. I see a lot of it. I agree. Like I think for the longest time, McCree was a really, really well kept
Yeah.
hero. He was like the pure skill hero almost. Like more so even in a Widowmaker than Awake, because Widowmaker felt like oppressive.
Yeah.
Whereas McCree was like, no, you respect it. You respect
Right.
when the McCree is there and he
Right.
kills you. Fair play. But I think in recent times we've seen this like push towards making him chunkier, giving the role a
Yeah.
smaller cooldown. And for that reason, like I feel like a predominant amount of like right click roll right click is going
Yeah.
on.
And this is where
To
the
make
lines are blurred between skill and value floor.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
It's
hard
like
to
you
differentiate
can
them.
just muck right click around, right? You can muck right click around. And is that that's the question, is like, does that count as an entry level to the hero? Do
Right.
you count someone flashbang right clicking their way to
No,
victory as
I
like
don't know.
you've got this hero down?
And that's the hard part. And I don't know. I think that's really, really tricky. I mean, the right click is certain a part of the kit that I hate. I disdain it. It drives me nuts. It's skillless and annoying.
Yeah.
Nobody likes losing to that.
Literally, I've told my chat like my biggest pet peeve in the game is right click, is the McCree right click.
Wow, you hate it more than I
Literally,
do.
like that.
That's saying something.
Yeah, it's literally my biggest pet peeve in the game because it feels so incongruous with a character who's otherwise great. It's just like this really dumb ability that just like, yeah, just press this button.
Yeah, I don't understand its role either. That's no pun intended. I don't understand its role. I think 2 is fair. High 2, but a 2.
Yeah, it's like 2.5. I wouldn't be mad with 2.5. We gave Hanzo 2.5, so it kind of feels fair, but the same. Let me just compare. So we gave Genji 3, Hanzo 2.5, Echo 2. I think he's less than Echo. Like the skill floor is less than
Sure.
Echo, so I think 2 is fine.
I think because it is just so, he is just mechanics. Like especially in lower ranks, the complexity isn't there. Ceiling.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the ceiling is really, really high. I think the ceiling is really high because it's literally, you can say it's just all aim.
Yeah.
It's like you stand and you deliver. Right. That's McCree.
So, yeah. Okay. So what are your thoughts?
I'm tempted to 3.5, because I feel like there's no crutches. I mean, there is the McCree click, but again, once you get to the really high tier, you're not gonna be McCree clicking your way around. Like you just won't get that chance. So there's no like ult to rely on to be like, because High Noon again. I recently saw Wanted Glenn. I got the chance to cast Wanted, and I swear, out of like the 10 High Noons that he did, like 9 were just for reloads.
Yeah. I mean, part of that's a stylistic choice, if we're being honest.
Of course, yeah, Wanted is a bit more like that, but I still think that like the ult is it's not really gonna help you long term. Like 10 fights, the ult's really not gonna come up big that many often.
It's
that many
one
times.
of those ultimates like Hanzo that requires follow up, and obviously in rank that's not always available. So we are generally kind of finding a balance between ranked and like pro play with the ceiling aspect of things, but it is certainly to consider. So with me, the ceiling, he is the raw mechanics, raw aim, raw this. My only hesitancy is that while yes, he is raw aim, he deals with fall off, and his lack of mobility means that he's a little bit more limited with how he can use his mechanics. In other words, like how much he can get out of his mechanics. Whereas Widow, Tracer, Ashe, generally with the more mobility, more range, they're more flexible with how they can benefit from those mechanics, if that makes sense. Like you could get bottlenecked in Volskaya Industries for his Choke as a McCree, and even if you like are really strong mechanically, you're not going to really get an opportunity to show that right there.
Is that more in the value ceiling category though?
That's true. So here's my thought process then. So
yeah, go ahead. I wouldn't be mad with 3. I have to say I wouldn't be mad with 3 either.
So high mechanical, right? But to me, the ceiling is only mechanics with McCree. Because cooldown usage is a wash, ultimate usage, basically a wash. And another thing about McCree as well is he's one of the easiest, if not the easiest, hit scan hero to position with. Ashe, Tracer, Sombra, Widow. I'm trying to think. Soldier, even Soldier's arguably easier. The only thing that makes even Bastion, actually, now that we think about it, is probably is harder to position with. Excuse me. The only thing that McCree can do is in brawl metas. Again, this is kind of more pro play here, but like in brawl metas, you could have a hard flanking McCree because the enemy team is like no range whatsoever. But that's it.
Yeah, I think 3 is fair. I think you convinced me 3 is fair. I mean, again, there's somewhere in SCB who's shocked that I'm advocating for McCree in any way, shape, or form. But yes, 3 is fair.
It's just
okay. Value
floor.
Go ahead.
I mean, it's not particularly low. It's not particularly high. The right click is available, like you said. High Noon is an ultimate that's stronger in lower ranks than it is in higher ranks. It's not an impressive ultimate. It's not a really strong ultimate, but it's better. It's not trash in lower ranks.
Yeah.
Flashbang as well. Stronger in lower ranks than it is in higher ranks. It's stronger in higher ranks as a threat, but it gets a lot of value straight up in lower ranks.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm tempted to say, I mean, let's again, we have to kind of go back here.
Yeah, let's look back. Yeah, so we got
value floor.
I think Hanzo. So if Hanzo's 2, Genji's 2, Echo 2.5, those are kind of, I think, and Ashe is 3.
You could argue that McCree's has a higher value floor than Hanzo, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fair argument.
Flashbang gets more value. The ultimate's better. I think the only thing is the pick potential, like the random kills that doesn't happen as much. But I would give him a 2.5 hesitantly.
Yeah, I'm deliberating between 2 or 2.5. I think there's definitely less value to be gotten from an Ashe than an Ashe rather.
Mm-hmm.
And more than Genji.
Yeah.
I'm unsure again. I'm just thinking back to all the like gold and platinum matches I watch, and it's like, how often does that McCree take over compared to how often a Genji just blades and takes over?
The difference between the Genji though, and I don't know what you're respecting, but the Genji is going to require more coordination, and he relies the nano boost for him to be able to take over as much, in my opinion. So it may be that you saw it more in your circumstance, where I'm thinking more of ranked, because when I think floor, it's no longer pro play versus ranked. It's just ranked. It's just ranked. And so if maybe Genji's value increases in like pugs, but I think that's like of the minority of situations when we're talking floor.
Yeah. Okay. So 2.5 I think makes sense. 2.5 makes sense.
But I'm it's tough for me. Ceiling.
It's a high ceiling, but not as high as the meta heroes. Basically, it's like you can get a lot done, but again, the limiting factor is the kit, and compared to an Echo or an Ashe, who can just have more going on, it's just less. So looking back, maybe between 3 and 2.5, I think, like, between those two, probably.
I'm gonna lean 3, but my reasoning is because he is a hero that's good at dealing with heroes that are meta right now. He's not super strong himself, but he's pretty good. The Ball, Tracer, Echo, like those are the trilogy. I mean, those are the 3 that got nerfed recently, so that tells you a lot. Like those are like the heroes that you're seeing a lot of. They're very strong, big, big problems for teams right now. So I think he does well against those heroes. So I think he's good. The other thing that leads me to not like, obviously those heroes got nerfed, so maybe McCree's a little bit less of a value thing. But the other thing is that he is also, if we see more Brawl meta, like we've seen more Rein, we've seen more D.Va, those heroes have been buffed since the spam nerf. Kree's very good in that comp. Very, very good in that comp. Kree is really is arguably the only must-pick DPS. Well, not necessarily the only, but certainly one of the top 2 pick DPS in Brawl metas. Up there with argue with Mei. So I think he benefits. The only comp that he doesn't like is hard dive, and I don't think we see that anytime soon. So in terms of value ceiling, ranked scrims, I think Kree is gonna see has a high chance of seeing some play, not just with the strength of the character, but also the strength of the meta.
Yeah, I think a fair assessment. Buffs or nerfs? I think he's fine. Obviously, I wish they would take McCry clicks
Please
away.
take it away. Please, I hate it so much. I don't understand its purpose in the game. So I actually, I'm like negative 0.1, and I've got a couple reasons why. Obviously the right click, like you said. But I think. Okay, first off, I want to make it public. I really like what Blizzard's done with his fire rate. I'm glad they've nerfed his fire rate down and kind of brought. And by the way, I like the HP buff as well. I think before the HP buff, he was not seen as an anti-dive hero. He just died too easily. The 25 HP went a long way. He can actually counter dive, especially with some support now. He does pretty well against that, that's what his role was. But what I don't like is maybe this is more of my issue with the right click or not, but sometimes it feels like the flashbang hitbox is goofy. I would really like them to look at that. I cannot tell me how many times where I'm like, that should have landed, or there's no way that should have landed, like either side of the spectrum. So that's annoying to play against for sure. So no buffs or nerfs necessarily, but he needs a couple of ability examinations for sure.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't even be opposed to putting a minus 0.5 against him, almost as an asterisk, as like think about this hero.
Yeah,
he's not
sure
someone to be left alone.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, fun against.
Or let's just put 0. Yeah, let's put a minus 0.5. I think that's fair. Fun against. Again, it depends how you died to the McCree. Did you die by being 3-tapped, or did you get flashbang right click?
True. I don't know. I would say, like, you compare him to like a Hanzo, who's 1.5. I mean, he's certainly higher than a Hanzo. He's certainly higher than a Junkrat.
Yeah,
and he's more broadly annoying than an Echo, but he's not specifically targeting. I'd probably say 2.5 for me, because like we were willing to give Genji a 3 despite Nanoblade. I think we should be willing to give McCree a 2.5 or even a 3. If we're willing to overlook Nanoblade, then we should be willing to overlook Flash right click. So I think 3 or 2.5 for me.
Well, the counter argument I made to that is that Nanoblade is the ultimate, whereas the McCry click is the default. Like, you can McCry click like 3 times, 4 times in the space of one Dragon Blade.
But the question is
so
how many times
2.5 is fair.
Yeah, but the question is how many times does McCry click like actually swing? Like, how many times does that actually get kills in a fight? And I guess we're talking all tiers here, so that's something you have to keep in mind.
Yeah,
because Nanoblade, I think is every other fight, but it's the whole fight is dictated by that, arguably.
That's true.
Whereas with McCry click, it might be once every couple of fights. I mean, it depends. Like, I don't know how much do you feed in rank.
Well, again, I think in gold or plat, you're just seeing that's it. Like, it's just like roll right click, roll into shields, whatever, into tanks.
All right.
I think 2.5 is fair. Like, he is fun. He, like, again, if I play against a skillful McCree, I'm happy to die. But there's also the real element. In the same way the Hanzo, it's like sometimes you lose a skill based fight against Hanzo, and sometimes you're just like, well, that was stupid.
Yes, I agree with that. Okay.
Okay.
Mei, is this me or is this you on floor?
I think it's me. Skill floor. I might be a little bit controversial in saying that there is actually a decent amount of like nuance required to actually. Yes, you can left click freeze people, but I think walling people is actually more difficult than people think. Because I see failed walls all the time. Like, you see people pick Mei, and you're like, well, they should just win this like King's Row Ryan Zarya matchup, and there's like even just like something small as having a gap in the wall, and that's like completely
Right,
useless.
for sure.
So I definitely think she's like actually as much as she gets shit on, I actually think she's like isn't the easiest hero to just pick up.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. And this is again where the lines between skill floor and value floor are blurred. Because before it was when her freeze, basically time to freeze was faster. Her wall had a higher HP, lower cooldown. Like you could argue that she was easier to pick up and get value out of. But I definitely think that she's trickier than other DPS heroes. I think the other thing with Mei as well is it's like, especially with the meta that we're dealing with right now, and honestly, just like across a lot of metas, like we had a brawl meta for a long time, so people got a nice opportunity to get really mad at Mei, but she's not great in a lot of situations. She's tricky in a lot of situations. So I think for you to categorize skill floor as easy, oh yeah, she's really easy, you have to only be looking at one type of composition. Maybe brawl. Okay, she's not like you just wall and mouse one, but in every other situation, she's not easy at all. So I think skill floor certainly is maybe not as high as like a Genji, but I would say it's comparable to like a McCree in most instances, maybe even a little higher. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think 2.5. I think like we're looking Hanzo 2.5. I think Maisel, because she does have a projectile that if you actually want to hit, if you actually want to be lethal yourself, you have to get it. You have to hit it. So
yeah, I agree. 2.5.
I think 2.5 is fair.
2.5. I agree.
Okay, ceiling.
Shoot. Again, this is so meta specific because it's like she's one of those heroes that just has one signature. And she's just like, it doesn't matter how good you are at Mei, you're just like trying to play Mei. Can you like Winston Diva, Sombra, Mei? Like that's not going to really work. But like, let's say you're playing in a relatively friendly situation. I think she has a really high ceiling. In contenders in Overwatch League, like you could tell the teams that have a good Mei and a bad Mei. Like it is a huge deal. In terms of like nailing your walls, target priority. And obviously just hitting your right clicks, man. Like I had was fortunate enough to play with a really strong Mei last contender season in Backbone with Sheer Cold, and he just would lap people with Mei ults, because he's hitting us right clicks between fights, and right as these fights are. So we're getting these blizzards really fast. So, certainly not as high as a Genji, but I would say probably maybe on par with McCree even, or certainly at least at least a 2.5. Certainly at least a 2.5.
Yeah, I think 3 is fair. I think because there's a lot of braininess to Mei that we shouldn't undersell. I think that's the thing about it as well. Like there is the projectile right click that you were talking about, with the players that you played with.
Yeah.
But I also think that there is particularly when, like you said, in the Rein brawl meta, yes, it's very obvious what to do with your wall the Rein off and kill him. Yes. But in every other situation, you really have to think creatively about like what angle am I blocking? Like who am I blocking? Sometimes I'm just walling to buy a little bit of time. Yeah. Sometimes I'm walling to like protect one of my team. Like I'll just wall my teammate off to protect them. So
exactly.
I think 3. I think 3 is fair.
I think that's fair as well. Okay. Value floor.
Value floor. You can get a lot done if you execute with any decent level of competence your walls. But again, I think it's very map specific.
Yeah.
Is the problem.
Can we make it a rule that like when we're talking, because like I start, because like this is so hard with heroes like this and Junkrat and stuff, because there's like some maps Mei is just awful. So let's do this. Let's assume with floor, ceiling, etc., that you're playing her in like what 2/3 of the maps, and that the 1/3 of the map that is just unplayable, you're not. Let's just assume that you have something of a brain.
Okay. Yeah, I think because on maps like the number 1 map, you think Hanamura A. That's like you're just never getting through that gate if there's a Mei around.
Yeah.
And in that case, it's very easy to do it. But I think in most other maps, it's like actually not that easy to just pick Mei and win.
Yeah.
So I think 2 is like as high as you can really go.
Yeah.
Like I don't think you can you really say like that you're always gonna get value with Mei? Like just pick Mei, right?
No. And we also have to consider like what heroes are popular right now. Like people are playing more Tracer, people are playing more Ball, people are playing more Echo, snipers, stuff like that. Like again, it's not just the map, but it's also the compositional stuff. Like she is impressive against a very specific type of composition, but if it's not handed to her, she's not going to feel super great.
And again, I know that there's tank players who are like, well, I just get frozen off cooldown. But again, it's just like that's like one role that she's tormenting. But you can easily like kind of get around that with all the other
Yeah,
characters.
yeah, I agree.
So I
I
think
agree with
2
you.
is fair. I think
Value ceiling.
ceiling.
Shoot. Again, I don't. Again, this is just meta specific. She's not good against the heroes that are meta right now. That being said, I think that she might be better if things swing back towards Brawl, but it's not really our job to guess what the meta's going to be like. So I think we leave it at 2 with an asterisk that it could very easily jump to 3. Very easily, depending on whether we start to see Rein again. If we start to see Rein, this literally instantly jumps to 3. But until then, it just has to be a 2. I don't think there are other heroes that are very strong.
Yeah, I think there's just like there's so many options around it right now, and particularly the dominant options are, Sans Mei basically.
Yes.
There's no Mei involved in those, so I think asterisk is required because it's like you're right. It just jumps very wildly.
And this leads us into buffs and nerfs because again, this kind of like this lends it towards we should be buffing Mei because her skill floor is high, her skill ceiling's not high, but like above average, but she's flat average or below average really on the value. But boy, what are your opinions on this?
I have a hot take. Tell me what you think of it. I think Mei's left click shouldn't freeze. I think that she doesn't need it. I don't think she needs it. I think she'd be a much better hero if you just gave her walls, a decent damage right click, and let her alt freeze, and then try and make her more that way. I think because I think that go ahead.
I want you to finish your thought.
I just think that like the freeze is kind of what most people's gripe is anyways. With Mei, it's like it's the most frustrating aspect, and I actually think the wall is a really fun. Again, this is maybe people are like, you're a tank and you say this. It is really fun. I think the map geometry editing is something we don't have a lot of in Overwatch. In fact, this is probably the only real version of it. And I think it's a great like thing to like encourage in players to think more widely about, okay, well, how can I alter the map to give my team an advantage? So I feel like her left click just shouldn't freeze.
All right, so here's my big brain response. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I definitely agree that freeze just feels like a dumb mechanic. Like, why is this in the game? My concern with what you said is, obviously, I'm the critic, so I get to just nitpick your ideas with providing none of my own.
No, go ahead.
Is that obviously, if the Mei can't freeze with mouse 1, that reduces the efficacy of her Blizzard, because freezing people in Blizzard is a lot of time what keeps them in it. So you could argue that maybe Blizzard speed would have to speed up, and people in chat are like, "Oh, what if it just slowed down?" But then it's like, well, then is that really? If you're not gonna get the full freeze, are you really gonna be mouse wanting?
Yeah, I don't even think she needs the slow. I think you could do something that's like it allows the Blizzard freeze to come in faster.
But listen, if it's making people think about what to do instead of freezing, I'm all for it. I just don't have any ideas to bring to the table.
Sure, and I'm just brainstorming as well. Like, that's just my hot take. Maybe you see that version of Mei and it doesn't feel good at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would have to see it. But I think the thing is that like people are definitely unhappy with freeze. The other thing with the buffs and nerfs is that I'm even though she like right now we're saying skill floor, skill ceiling, it's higher than value floor. Well, part of that, like we said, is just the meta. Like she could very easily almost double her value floor and value ceiling just by being in a favorable meta. So like to me, there are some heroes that are perfectly balanced. They're just not favored in the meta right now. I think D.Va for a long time was one of those heroes. This past really all of 2020 almost. So I think we just kind of sit in our hands and we understand that, and we hope that Blizzard does a better job balancing the heroes around them.
I think what we should do. Sorry to interrupt, Philo. I was just gonna say I think what we should do is, because we've kind of left 0, and maybe someone looks at this and it's a bit ambiguous. I think we put whenever we want like rework, I think we just put asterisks like we did with the value ceiling.
Brilliant.
I think we can just put asterisks next to the other heroes that we were they just need a rework.
This is why you're doing this, because not only do you think of these things, but you also have to go back and do all the asterisks, and I just get to sit here and relax. So yeah, I'm fine for that.
I think even next to Hanzo, we can put the asterisks as like, and even McCree, like we're not saying the character in its entirety needs a nerf, but there's like one element of the character.
Sure.
That's like, hey, think about this.
Gets 2 asterisks because he needs a double rework. He needs everything reworked.
He's just like, please, just different hero.
Exactly. All right, fun against that one's easy. I mean, like nobody likes getting frozen. Nobody likes Blizzard.
No, nobody likes
Certainly not as bad as Bastion, but it doesn't get much worse. I mean, maybe. But Junkrat, is she as bad as Junkrat? I don't think so. I would say, again, meta specific. If I was playing Rein, I would say -50. But against the other
Yeah,
heroes, like Ball and like she's not that annoying. So either 1.5 or 2 for me, but I'm unsure. Because even like a Tracer, like at nobody, like you can get one shot, and that's like, are you serious? Like I got one shot by Mei, like that's like, but like how often does that happen? So like I don't know. I'm really torn in this one.
See, yeah, so my I agree with that as well, and I think on balance I would say 1.5, but then at the same time I can also see someone saying, okay, you may not die to Mei often, but every time you die to Mei, it usually sucks.
Exactly.
Right, like so.
Exactly. So to me, it's like
I'd say 1.5.
1.5, yeah. But I would say a little. I'd rather play against a Mei than a Junkrat, and 90% of the circumstances. Let's put it that way.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Okay, Pharah. Skill floor. No, so this is okay. So this hero might actually be one of the toughest ones for me, which is weird. You just there's nothing. But here's my reasoning, is that this is again going to bleed into value floor a little bit. But I have heard horror stories of console Pharah, and how it is for years it's just misery to play against. You just spam the chokes and you can't do anything. So in that aspect, playing a competent Pharah might be on a different par than what we're used to on PC level. I also think there's been a lot of misunderstanding about like the buffs / nerfs to Pharah. So Pharah has unquestionably been nerfed some, but she's also been buffed some as well. Some of the mobility, the way she moves around that, and shortening barrage for Pharah was a huge change. Really, really helpful. Like nerfing her splash damage but increasing fire rate. I think Pharah is like one of the quietly best reworked heroes in the game. Very quietly has been reworked very well to be less spammy, more fluid, more opportunistic and less niche. In other words, there's more situations you can play Pharah now than there used to be. So when we take that to skill floor, I'm like, okay, how skillful do you have to be to get decent value out of Pharah? And I'm actually, if we're taking the criterion of like 60% of maps, 65% of maps, 66.7 or whatever percent of maps, right? Not just Hanamura first point defense, right? Not just Lijiang Garden. You have to play it on more than half the maps. I think she's actually got a 2.5 skill floor, or maybe even higher.
Yeah, I think 2.5 at least, I actually think, because I think also with the flight change, it makes it very difficult now. Like it used to be that you could fly forever, right? And it's like that is an easier element. But now
that's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
Now that you actually drop to the ground, you either have to be really good and smart and like what kind of environment you run around, or you just have to be really, really competent with the hero. Right. So I think it's really tough to be a good Pharah.
I think so as well. I think the 2.5 is fair because she's like, again, we talk a lot about this with projectile heroes. She's spammy. Like it feels like we say that for every projectile hero.
She is spammy,
but definitely more.
But
skillful.
I think she's spammy in a better way than Hanzo. Right. Like because it's so far and it's like a vertical angle. It's a completely different type of spam than Hanzo spam. I think
somebody in my chat brought up something that I think we have to bring to the table before we leave this. How often do you get a pocket as Pharah? Any Pharah OTBs in chat? How do you guys have like a general percentage of games that you guys get?
Well, remember at the start we said that we're not thinking we're keeping as a consideration.
Right, not too much.
In which case this goes up. Up, right? Because like without a pocket, it's a whole nother world. Right. It's a whole new
world. Exactly. That was beautiful. Thank you. So she's definitely harder without a pocket, but I'm certain picking a Pharah, people are more likely to play Mercy, unquestionably. But I don't know. I have no idea what the estimate is. So like, it's tough for me. I don't think it's a huge impact though. I still think 2.5.
Let's have a look at the others. Let's have a look at this. So Ashe 2.5, Doomfist 3.5. Have we given anyone a 3? Genji we gave 3. Would you say it's harder to pick up Genji than it is to pick up Pharah?
Yes, I would say so.
Yeah, I think so too. In which case I think 2.5.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Although I would also argue that it's probably harder to pick up Pharah than it is to pick up Hanzo.
Yes.
But,
so high 2.5.
2.75. Yeah, it's like a 2.75 or whatever. Like, somewhere in between those.
Yeah. Okay, should we revisit Genji?
And actually, arguably, she's kind of harder. Yeah. She's kind of harder than Echo, I think. Echo got 2.5.
We need to revisit Genji's skill floor here, I think. We need to bump it up to 3.5.
Maybe we bump Doom to 4. I don't know.
Well, here's my thought process.
And then Genji to 3.5.
I'm sneak peeking. I have Tracer Widow at 4 on skill floor already. So I think 4 is going to be congregated all right. But I'm concerned, like, who else is going to be 3.5 if not Genji and Doom? Maybe Doom does go to 4. No, I don't think Doom is as hard. I don't know. It just feels it feels lonely at the top. You know, it feels it feels like Pharah is like the 2.9 and Genji's like the 3.2. You know what I'm saying?
I kind of wish I could just conduct a live experiment and give like 5 players a hero each to play and be like, who's hard? Like give them all heroes to play and just be like, who's hardest? And like see how they struggle trying to understand Tracer with it, because it's also been so long since you know heroes were genuinely new that. Yeah. Okay, let's put Genji 3.5. Whether we put Doom to 4 or not, I think Genji maybe 3.5 and then Pharah 3.
Yeah, Pharah 3 for sure. If Genji's 3.5. Okay, the reason for Genji 3.5 is maybe we could say his neutral is as hard as the Doomfist's. But his
is it? I don't know. Again, we said like, you know, it's so specific to have to learn Doom rollout. Like you have to learn it.
But
There's
keep in mind, we're talking,
if you want to be
talking like, but the basic Doom rollouts aren't super hard to learn.
I suppose that's also true. The basic Doom rollouts you can do.
I would say the ceiling is where you start to get to ridiculous levels. But unfortunately, that's also where a lot of other heroes get to ridiculous levels with Doomfist. You know what I'm saying? Like with Doomfist, it's like to have a base competency, you need to know your cooldowns, you need to have a base level of rotations. But with Genji, you have to basically say, I can't use any of my cooldowns until I see the perfect opportunity, or I have to position myself perfectly.
There is the blade. The blade factor is the thing.
That's true as well.
Where like Doomfist doesn't really have. I mean, yes, the Meteor Strike is good, but it's also like avoidable. It's avoidable.
Yeah. I don't know, man. This is tough.
We can leave it as is for now. Maybe after we talk about Tracer and Widow, we can reassess Doom.
All right, I'm glad we got some debate discussion going on. It's fun. Back to Pharah.
It's tricky.
It is tricky.
Man. Skill ceiling. Yeah, again, I actually don't think it's it's just so difficult. Who are you talking about in a way, right? Because it's like someone like Yanza is like, this dude is talented. This dude is really, really talented at this hero and really milks every aspect of their kit. But at the same time, once you master the kit, it's more just like getting cheeky with it, getting like, you know, a little bit more creative with it.
Some
but
insight
I wouldn't say it's like super high.
Because
go ahead. Go ahead.
I've had I'm just gonna say Yizna because that's how I've heard teammates of his, but I don't know. So if I'm
I don't know how it's pronounced. I'm just going off what I heard someone else say.
So Yizna, we played up against him in officials multiple times. In fact, we were one of the only teams that actually beat his team when they were at their peak. The Ball, Overwatch, and Yizna and all that stuff. And everybody was like, oh, he's just gonna go cheesy plays, but we kept losing to those cheesy plays, even though we knew they were coming. And not just we, but other teams are losing. They almost beat British Hurricane, and it was off of the back of really Yizna and Ball. It was those two guys. They hard carried that team. The rest team was good too, but they were just on another level.
Chat says Yazinsa.
Yazin. Yeah. Yazinsa. So Yazinsa was, we'll just call him Yazin for sure. So Yazin was like, Yazin just, his ability to move and ability to time things turned it from like cheesy to you can't counterplay it because you time it so well that your attention was always split. And then obviously the mechanics, like, Echo's one of the hardest counters to Pharah in the game, but he's directing Echoes out of the sky and just, taking them out. So like, I actually thought Pharah was like a 2 or 2.5 back in the day. But training against Yazin for several months made me think at least a 3 with this hero. At least a 3. Arguably 3.5. But I would say probably closer to 3. Because the only reason I say 3 is because it is a relatively simple ultimate. The ultimate is not particularly difficult at all. It's like all timing. It's just you press Q, But the mechanical and cooldown usage is relatively important. I would say high 3, low 3.5, but I'm unsure.
Well, let's put it this way: do you think it's a higher skill ceiling for Genji or Pharah, or the same?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's got to be Genji, but not by much.
In that case,
Pharah
much. Goes to 3 then.
But not by much. I will classify.
Not by much.
Not by much. It's also tricky because I don't know that many people have played Pharah at such a high level as Yazin. So
yeah, that's the one thing as well. Like you don't see that a lot. That's the what really complicates it, is that I don't see many other Pharah players extracting that kind of value, which actually lends the argument that there's a ceiling that people haven't reached, that Yazin has.
Right, that's true. But at the same time, a lot of what you see, like to me, the part of what hurts it is that we don't know for sure But we do know for sure that Genji has a ridiculously high ceiling. We don't know if Yazan, if Yazan has found the Pharah ceiling yet, because she just hasn't been a very much played hero ever. I mean, she's not been a 0 picked hero, but she's not been, at least at the pro level, she's been a very map specific hero for a long time and multiple metas. You play Pharah on this map.
Well, again, to make this we've gone for a while, but to make this even more complicated, we did say 75% of maps, right? And actually playing her on 75% of maps is now even more difficult.
Yes, but that doesn't mean it's a skill ceiling. That's more value ceiling.
But to survive with her, would it not be more difficult on certain maps?
Maybe more. Yeah, it'd be more difficult, but it would be more along the lines
of require more skill. Basically,
require more skill, but I think it'd be more along the lines you have to handicap yourself rather than find a way to work around it. Like if you're playing Pharah.
Right, so let's go 3 then.
I give 3. It's tough though.
It's just not easy. No. It's not an easy out here. I think 3. Okay, value floor. What will you get if you just pick Pharah and you shoot some rockets? Not like crazy high, but you can get some spam. You can get, in particularly on certain maps, but again, we're talking 75%. So let's compare. Is there more value from picking Hanzo and spamming with Hanzo? Probably about the same.
Yeah. As far as stronger on some maps, weaker on others.
Yeah, and again, like you can kind of guarantee to land. Like if you wanted to, you could kind of guarantee a certain number of rockets will just hit, right?
Yeah.
You can't really miss a certain number of rockets if you just aim them in the general direction of tanks.
Yes, I agree with that.
So I think 2 is fair.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, ceiling then.
I think 3. Again, Yazan has found a way to make it work, but.
But in this case, I actually don't think that should matter.
No, because the thing is like even though Yazan found a way to make it work, they still lost to Echo comps. You know what I'm saying? They still lost to Sombra Tracer comps. Yeah, exactly. They still lost to spam comps. Like you couldn't run Pharah everywhere and that be the best comp. Like I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Champ, but I'm pretty sure Yazan actually started to pick up some other. I know in scrims that towards the end he would play Echo on some maps because where it was just impossible to play Pharah. You couldn't make it work everywhere, and that's
the thing I want to
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was gonna say the thing I want to add to this as well is that we're talking about a player who is not at Overwatch League, so there's a chance that like should you put that player in Overwatch League, they might actually meet even harder checks.
Although
if you get me, like they're gonna go up against a higher caliber of.
You could argue Yazan's probably top 4 or 5 Pharahs in the world.
No, he definitely is. In fact, I don't think this part went live, but when I was talking to the coaches. They were literally discussing this. They were like, "Where do you rate him in the Pharahs in the world?" They were all like, "Yeah, top 5
he's top
for sure."
5. I mean, I would say maybe a couple of like Overwatch League level players.
But the point isn't that he would go down. The point is that the opposition of Widowmakers that he would be up, or opposition hit scan he'd be up against would go up, so then his value would go down.
And the other thing with Pharah as well is part of the reason, like, avoided dumpstered uncoordinated teams. I'm talking dumpstered them through his play. Again, largely his play. Discipline was much better against the Pharah because, like you said, some of it is like Yazan was incredibly good at timing it, but you could deal with some of his positioning and flanking if you were disciplined, which we expect more at the ceiling, right? Better teams found better ways of dealing with their Pharah.
Exactly.
Like you were more likely to see Yazan swap off of Pharah against harder opposition. That's kind of like what we see. And that's, to me, that's where you see the limits of the ceiling, and that's where I think you get 2.5 maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think somewhere out there, like Jake is saying, even less than this. But yeah, I think 2.5 is fine. I think I remember Jake was just like really, really depressed about the state of Pharah, and he was just like,
and this is ceiling too. We have to be clear, Chad. Like this is played perfectly. Pharah is still not exactly like. I mean, I guess it's flat out average essentially.
There's an argument. Let's have a look again. So Genji 2. Yeah, I think she's more than. Is she more than Genji?
Yes.
More value?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so, right? I think that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, do you think
I think she's fair.
Less you can one trick Genji to 4.7 nowadays? Like,
no.
I mean, again,
you probably wouldn't.
You might not like Pharah. Like Yazan is the best Pharah in the world, but like I don't anybody could one trick Genji to 4.7.
Also, in that equation is the fact that you can actually just Pharah pocket Mercy in the way you can't like. Even if you pick Ana, you can't actually like stick with the Genji at all times to make sure he gets value, right?
Yeah.
Like, whereas the Pharah, because she allows Mercy to survive more, you can viably keep them both together.
Right. You can never completely hard counter pharmacy. Like not as much as she's developed with her mobility. I don't think it's possible to completely prevent them from playing Pharah. You can discourage it strongly, but you can't stop them from playing completely. Which historically you used to be able to when she was a little slower.
Now buffs and nerfs is tricky.
Nothing.
This is tricky.
Absolutely nothing, in my opinion.
Go ahead, explain.
I think she's in a great state. I think, like I said, she's been quietly one of the best reworks Blizzard has done. They've made her less spammy, more mobile, more flexible, but still like retains the signature of the flying rocket launcher, right? I don't think she needs anything. I don't have a whole lot more to add there. I don't think she needs anything. A Backbone OW in my chat saying revert the fuel back, but I disagree. I think like having a hero that permanently flies is like, why? Like make it harder to fly. Like you have to use high ground, you have to lose ledges, you have to like, even with perfect fuel management, you still have to drop occasionally. Like I think she's very well balanced right now. She's funny flying lady.
Yeah,
oh my gosh, my chat is dropping in IQ rapidly.
I agree with that. The only thing I'm thinking again is like, is the viability of projectile versus hit scan. Like in an ideal game state, you basically want like one hit scan, one projectile. Is like if you're really thinking like this is a balanced like perfect state. So that's not really the case apart from really specific maps, but that's also fine. I think her being a map specific pick is also good because you want that inherent diversity brought about by like certain map geography. So yeah, I think Zero is fine, but again, I think larger big picture, like it would be nice if she was more like if her and other projectiles were more valuable.
I think that's the key there. I think it's key there. There's somebody in chat complaining, but nobody plays her at high rank. Well, Yasin plays her, but that's obviously not a good enough argument. That's just one player. I think the key thing is that we're going to see here is as we're getting closer to more hit scan heroes at the end here, we've got, we've already gone over Ashe McCree, which were mostly either nerf or stay alone. We've got Sombra, Tracer, Widow, and I think for the most part, we're largely going to be talking either nerfs or slight reworks for those heroes. So if we don't call for buffs to projectile heroes, it's not because we don't recognize, like SVB saying, the struggle. It's because we think that the answer lies not in buffing the projectile, but in nerfing the hit scan. You're welcome, tank. You're welcome, tank mains.
I also think another aspect of that is that looking at ladder sometimes isn't always a good picture because it's like mostly sometimes when you look at ladder, it's like who's one tricking what.
Yeah.
And there's no incentive really to one trick Pharah unless you just love the hero because of the lack of viability on so many maps. So why not just spend your time getting better at Echo, Ashe, Tracer?
Right.
And that's probably why. Like if all things were equal, you'd probably would see more Pharah mains. It's just that you don't want. Why would you spend that time on Pharah when you could spend it on Echo and achieve similar outputs? So that's, I think, to the latter point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's the
good point. I think like she is more map specific. Somebody in chat's like, well, why don't we see her in Overwatch League? Well, we've seen metas where Pharah wasn't very popular, but we've also Pharah, when she was played, was like she filled the role well. She was very map specific. She was anti-goats. There was even some times where they would play her with double shield. But anyway, I think we've done it. Fun against. No buffs, nerfs. Are we in agreement on that?
Yeah, I think zero.
Fun against. Again, this is situational on rank. At higher ranks, she's kind of nothing terribly bad or for against. She's a little annoying for sure. But in lower ranks, I know she's pretty annoying. I would say probably a 2 for me.
Yeah, I think 2 is fair. I think 2, considering Ashe and Echo are 2, I think 2 is fair because I know that there's a powerlessness that comes with facing Pharah sometimes where you're like, well, there's nothing I can do, right? Like, is a Pharah Mercy in the air? And again, to bring the console equation back that you mentioned, like, it's harder. Although I've also heard horror stories. I wish I just had a sort of PlayStation or Xbox that I could actually test this out for myself. But like, I've heard the horror stories, but then I've also heard people who are like, nah, that's overblown. And I've like, people are saying that actually even in Console Master, by the time you get to Console Master, people are like good enough to deal with Pharah. So there's a powerlessness to it, but I think more often than not, you're okay. So I think 2 is fair.
Yeah. Okay.
My DPS fallback, Reaper.
You want to start with this one? Because I mean, he is your boy.
Skill floor. This I'm kind of biased because how I think this hero is like super brain dead, easy, busted. That's my stance, and I say this as this is my most played DPS hero. I recently have a DPS alt account and stuff, and I'm trying to play him. And whenever shit's going wrong, I just pull out the Reaper, because he literally just kills everything. He's like he duels easy, he shreds tanks easy, and he's got an escape and mobility. So in terms of the floor, I don't think it's too high. I don't think it's too high. I think there's like the weapon lends itself to just like you can do a lot with it. 2, I think maybe.
2 at most, if even that. Yeah.
I think McCree's 2. I think 1.5. Then if McCree's 2.
Yeah, I think 1.5 is fair. I don't think you can arguably say it does more than Kree. And again, we're not talking about value. Like Reaper is relatively easy to counter, and he has difficulties, but there's just not like you basically say, guys, you press mouse 1 at the enemy team, you use your TP and backline, and if you're going to die, you press your shift.
Press shift and run away.
That's it. Like that's all there is really.
And then go again.
And you go again.
Because literally, it's like. And particularly since they changed the TP so that you can't, like, it used to be that when you TP you were really vulnerable and you could get domed, but now you can actually I can just TP in someone's face and I'll have the animation where I can just crouch or juke before they even get the chance to hit, and I'm already there killing them. And if I did fuck up, I'll just shift out
and you're fine,
and then go again, and in like 5 seconds I'll go
his
again.
His ultimate is not particularly challenging either.
And it gets huge value. Like it actually just gets massive value.
This is, don't bleed in me, SVP. Come on, stay disciplined. We're not in the skill floor yet.
No, I just mean that. Yeah, you're sure. You're right. Okay. Skill ceiling. Go ahead.
I don't know. Skill ceiling is very low as well. I would say. I mean, honestly, 1.5 maybe. For a second, I really wanted to be like whip out the really hot take and say 1. But because mechanics is a thing with Reaper, it's not you can't just mouse 1 at the enemy team. Like you're not going to get that opportunity at higher ranks. You have to click your heads. You have to get those either the one shots, the forced glow. And so I definitely a 1.5. I mean that's really it. Like I remember when we had the Reaper Doom meta, and I actually spent a lot of time studying this meta. We did a lot of trials, and whenever I had a player that couldn't play Reaper like terribly, I was always like, come on, man, how do you mess this up at the top level?
How do you fuck this up?
There's not a lot to it. You click heads. You need to make sure that your timing properly. Obviously, is a big one, but honestly, like every DPS hero has to worry about that. This is not Reaper. There aren't many Reaper specific challenges at all.
No,
and
I don't think there's any.
No, TP positioning with Reaper is a little bit unique because you can do a lot of positions where I like to call lurking. It's where you're flanking, but you're waiting for them to walk through the choke, and then you're shooting, and you can change up your angle and things like that. But there's not a lot. It's very low. So I would say 1.5. I mean, but we have to go back. Or is there?
Bastion was 1.5 and Junkrat's 2. So that's where we kind of have to. That's our references, I think. As like, is he more skill ceiling than Bastion?
No.
Yeah, I don't really think so. Like, although, people, Bastion is brain dead. Again, ceiling to like actually really milk value, I think is actually pretty difficult as Bastion because it's so easy to hard counter him. Like his kit requires you to sit there immobile, so it's actually really easy to hard counter. Whereas Reaper,
my concern is that if we don't give Reaper a 1.5, what's going to get 1? Or is there any hero left that's going to get a 1?
No.
The only one that might be, which I'm jumping the gun here, is I might say Symmetra ceiling might be a.
Yeah, I was thinking that, but then again, I think you can get very creative with Symmetra. The kit allows you to very creative.
Yeah, I think maybe
in a way that Reaper doesn't. In a way that Reaper doesn't.
Yeah, well, see, chat actually brings up a good point because for DPS, we have to keep in mind that we're only comparing DPS, but Moira ceiling is definitely 1. but that's not what we're not bringing into the table here. So maybe we just say 1.5 with the understanding that the scale isn't just DPS to DPS, but like we're kind of keeping in mind the whole hero cast as a whole. In other words, maybe we don't get the full 1 experience because there are no DPS heroes that are that easy. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Again, it's up to you because at the end of the day, it's your format. So I'll let you make the call whether like it's intra role or inter role.
Yeah. I think 1.5. Just that along with the mechanics, it prevents me from doing it. Give me 1 second, SVB. I need like 5 seconds.
Sure.
Can you hear me now, SVB? Or am I deafened?
Take your time. Chat.
Okay, sick.
What are you saying? Argument to get creative with Reaper TP.
Subs.
I don't know if you really do get creative with Reaper TP. It's not like you really are like 5-head. It's not a 5-head.
Thank you so much for the gifted subs, mate. I really, really appreciate it. That was super, super generous of you. I know you're a relatively new viewer, but thank you so much, guys. Uber, Ixion, Niwa, Joe Pro, Versatility. Thank you. Congratulations, you guys, rather, on that. All right.
The bot TP yourself, but you could also potentially create strats. Yo, what's
Sorry
up?
about that. I had some
no worries. So value
some
floor.
Gifted subs, but okay. So nice. Value floor. What do you think?
There's a lot of value to be had with this hero. I think. Again, I just think like he's such a safe pick. Like as long as you're not a monkey, there's like you can always get a kill with the Reaper. Like not monkeys in literally Winston. What I mean is like, you know, he does everything. He can kill. He can duel, DPS and assassinate backlines and kill tanks.
Yes.
So
again, we have to consider
there's a lot of value
with value floor as well as he has one of the highest value ultimates in lower ranks in the game, in my opinion. Up there with Riptire.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking like, so Junkrat is 3.5, Bastion is 4. I think he's 3.5. I'm being legit brutally honest.
I agree.
This hero is so like, you just pick this guy, and the hero will do a lot of the work for you. Like that's why I pick him. Anyone who might be like, why does SVB hate Reaper? I love playing Reaper. It's fucking joy. Because literally, this hero gives you so many crutches to operate with that it makes getting value really easy. So
I agree. I'm losing focus. I got gifted more subs, and they're doing it because of my sub notification rings in my ears nonstop. Thank you guys.
Nice. Well, keep it up. Keep it up, Spylo chat. Keep gifting those subs to Spylo. Make him feel welcome back.
Or welcome back in death.
Semi-retirement.
Value ceiling. I definitely agree with the 3.5. Value ceiling. I mean, he's not very good right now.
So yeah, this is where I think like the problem with Reaper is that he can actually get hard countered or like and meta countered. I think a lot of people were like, because I was discussing Reaper's brokenness recently. A lot of people were like, well, why isn't he so meta if you think he's so broken as he is? It's because like longer range stuff just wrecks him, right? And like, why would you pick Reaper when you can do the same amounts of damage with longer range heroes?
Let's put it this way. He's like Mei, but with less value against less meta compositions or meta composition. In other words, like you could argue that Reaper in some ways is even worse than Mei against other comps because everybody in like lower ranks is like, oh, why don't they just play? They're playing ball, Tracer. Just go right Reaper, and the ball can't do anything. It's not true. The ball can still do a great deal. Reaper is like, and again, in spam, double shield spam, like, what Reaper could just TP? No, Reaper can't. Like, Mei is better against double shield. Mei is arguably better against ball. Like, Reaper is just very much, you play Brawl, you can play Reaper. And that's it. You could play him in certain dive brawly situations, but those are very specific. And a lot of times, like, again, like even in Brawl, like he gets outclassed by Kree. So I think value ceiling is very, very low. I would say, I mean, we've talked about Bastion one-tricking, Doom one-tricking, maybe a 1.5 with Reaper, maybe a 2, but certainly no higher than 2.
Well, let's see. So Mei's 2, Junkrat is 1.5.
Maybe it's got to be 1.5.
If he gets the same amount of value as a Junkrat, I think he can get more value than a Junkrat. I think you can get more value with Reaper than a Junkrat. You could make it work.
That's true.
I think 2 is fair.
But I definitely think...
And Doomfist as well was 1.5. So I think like you could definitely get more value in pretty much every situation with Reaper.
True. I think it's like we have Mei and Reaper on the same tier, but Mei's clearly slightly higher. Just slightly.
Yeah, and again, that's the asterisk, right? That's why the asterisk is there, because like she could just explode off that, right? So buffs or nerfs. See, on the one hand, I think he's fine, but on the other hand, I actually do think he's broken even as is.
Yeah.
I actually think that like he could do with some, because you can look at his stats and say, well, fine, he's strong, but then he never gets that much value. But I still think like for what he is, he's a little bit too strong.
Yeah. Well, here's my thought process. I wouldn't touch him too much. Okay, I might touch him.
It's phrasing.
I need to work on that one. I might adjust him. If
you want to touch, go ahead. But
I'll pass. I don't want to lose a hand. But like, he's like one of those, like you said, like lower ranks. I don't think he's as oppressive as like a Bastion or Junkrat. So I don't think there's as much urgency in that regard, at least in my opinion, in my experience. But I definitely don't want to buff him for higher ranks until we have a better idea of like what does he bring to the table. because it's not just the lack of utility, it's like the lack of complexity with his kit that makes him awkward. Like I said, he's a very archaic design. You TP and there's your survivability cooldown. That's basically it. And like the whole thing of like, oh, you can use shift to reload. Well, who does that? You know, because if you do that, you know, almost I would say 75% of the time it's a mistake because you're greeting and you might get punished 5 seconds later because you don't have a shift. So
well, it's like a win more.
Right,
move.
Exactly.
You're only doing it if you're already going to kill that guy.
So it's hard to really find the layers of value in him. So again, do we hard focus on making Reaper better? In which case he probably needs a rework, or do we just say, you know what, he's fine as he is. He's a low tier hero. Just, you know, he's a skill check, kind of like Bastion, but less so.
Yeah, I think he's fine as a skill check. I think, which is why I think maybe a slight nerf, because I think if he's a skill check, he shouldn't be as viable as he becomes. Like again, we compare him to like Bastion or Junkrat. I think he's comparable level. He can be comparable levels of oppressive, but he can actually get more value at the highest tier as well. So I think I would probably say minus 0.5.
Okay. With the asterisk, if my take. I agree with that, but I think you have to asterisk it because I definitely think that like if you nerfed him even a little bit, he would literally have a 0% win pick rate in like Masters Plus.
That's true.
Like even Bastion and Junkrat.
Yeah, that he could get dumpstered very quick.
And,
yeah, he could
and it
get
would be annoying too
quick.
because we're talking about a hero that is slightly less annoying, slightly more skillful than Reaper or Junkrat and Bastion, and yet he'd be worse than they are, and that would be tricky.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, Rack Attack. Fun against. I like. Okay, his ultimate, like, okay, lower ranks he's probably really annoying, but at high ranks he's not particularly annoying. So like there's a lot of ways to deal with the Reaper, right? Just shoot him for it is a great way of dealing with the Reaper. But like I don't know. I'm gonna concede. I want your thoughts on this one first.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I think it really is tough because like who you ask.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I think that like so many tanks are like Reaper, he just destroys me and there's nothing I can do. And to be fair, even like supports can sometimes feel that level of powerlessness because he does actually have that little bit extra HP compared to other DPS heroes. That means that even where ordinarily you might have killed a diver, he actually could, he could self-heal or he can wraith out. Like even if you sleep him, maybe he gets out even as you try to burst him, right?
Yeah.
So
I think too, because we're putting Mei at a 1.5 and the freeze mechanic that everybody, hates. I don't think he's more annoying than Mei necessarily. I don't think he's more annoying than Junkrat either. So like maybe a 2.
Yeah, I think 2 is fair. If Junkrat's 1.5, then I think Reaper is 2 is fair. Like, yeah, okay, it's not fun to die to Reaper, but would you rather die to that or the Junkrat? I think I'd pick the Reaper all day long, right? Because at least I have some chance of counterplay when the Reaper gets me, as opposed to just like random spam junk crap hits me.
Yeah, that's not fun. Okay. I guess next hero. Give me a second. I had to check my frames. I'm getting paranoid after that last drop. Soldier. So skill floor here. This is a hot take. This is another one that was a little bit controversial along the Echo one. I actually don't think his skill floor is very high. I actually think he's a relatively straightforward hero. He's got his own self heal, his own burst damage. He's got an ultimate that requires basically very little follow up. He doesn't need any support for it. He's very mobile. He does decent range damage, decent medium. Like to me, I just like, obviously the mechanics with him are like a thing. So, but I actually think that he's like, I'd probably say a 2 along with McCree, in terms of skill floor, or maybe even a 1.5. Like he's just very straightforward, very rewarding ultimate. And again, obviously the value is kind of bleeding in there a little bit as well, but it's not hard to use his ultimate, right? It's like he's like one of the few aim heroes that I actually feel like, along with McCree, isn't particularly hard in terms of skill floor.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's designed that way. I think as well. Like, he is the tutorial hero. Yeah. He's the COD hero. Like he's meant to be. You get in and you like. He's literally meant to be the hero. You jump into the game and you already quickly know how to play Soldier 76. Exactly. So by definition, I think a 1.5 is fair. Yeah. I think less than McCree. And I actually think as a like Junkrat is the only other 1.5 at the moment. I think that's actually fair because yes, you could say like hit scanning is harder, but there are other elements of his kit that just let him like also get value and run around and heal himself.
Right. I think it's tricky that we don't want to just fall into, oh, this hero aims, this is automatically a hard hero to play, because
exactly.
Skill ceiling. Thoughts?
Again, with all hit scan, there's that inherent like, oh well, you know, you can always aim better, but again, I don't think it's very high
No,
skill ceiling. It's like
no.
it's you know it's consistent damage. It's not like if you miss a shot, you're missing out on a lot of damage, right? You can if you as long as you track with
Yep.
decency, you're still gonna like you're still getting the stuff done. So like that skill ceiling of like you don't need to be
No.
80%
No.
accuracy or whatever. You can still just do
Yeah.
a decent
Yeah.
amount.
And the thing that to keep in mind with ceiling is like even if you were perfect at soldier, how good, like how hard would it? How long would it take you to get there? Right. And I think with
Hmm.
soldier, I think it is just the mouse one. Helix rocket is certainly a skill shot as well, but it's less so than other utility in the game. Healing station is just a wash. Like there's not much skill with that at all. And his ultimate is there's nothing in it at all. It's flanking and timing, and that's it. Um, so I think I look at the list when we've got a hero that's comparative with McCree, who's got a 3. I think McCree is more challenging in terms of aim.
Hmm.
And I think Soldier has slightly, I could argue that has slightly more difficult cooldowns with Helix Rocket. But I think Soldier for me is a solid 2.5 with ceiling. Just I think I put him.
Is he? Would you say he's more or less difficult than like skill ceiling than Ash?
Oh, definitely less difficult.
Well, we put Ash as 2.5.
Really? That's low. Why did we put her so low?
We could bump her
We
up
should
to
bump her up
3
to
if you
3.
feel.
I think for sure.
Yeah, I think 3 is probably more fair because in line with maybe Echo.
Yeah, because like
Again, we were just starting then, so
True.
we hadn't really got any
true,
reference points.
true. But I compare him to like McCree, and I'm like, McCree with scary aim is scary. Is like to me is it's harder to get that level with McCree than it is with the Soldier. So not without confusing
sure.
value and skill, like it is harder to get like that pin perfect aim with McCree. But
Again, the scariness from the soldier usually comes from like crazy flanks
Right,
or whatever. Which again is skillful to some degree, but not really
yeah,
that skillful either.
yeah,
It relies on stupidity. That's the
yeah,
key of it, I think. It's
yeah.
like at the highest level that wouldn't work.
Right, right. I agree. Okay, value floor. I mean, I definitely think that he's probably pretty high up on there. His damage, his like, well, first off, his I actually think his kit's pretty archaic and not very useful. Heal Station, Helix Rocket, not good. Sprint is obviously good, but like, Helix is okay, I guess. I mean, especially since they buffed it. Actually, they buffed it recently. About a year ago? I think they lowered the cooldown to like 6 seconds or 8 seconds or something crazy. So that's helpful for sure. But I think a lot of the floor does come from his ultimate. Like it's a very strong ultimate in lower ranks. A lot of value can just found from aimbotting, obviously. So I'm gonna give him probably a solid 2.5 or a 3 for me, without thinking about it too much.
Yeah, does he get more value than McCree? Yeah, I
Yes,
think
I
so.
think so.
I think so. So, but who else is 3? Let's have a look. Is there any 3s?
He'd
3s
be
in the
lower
chat.
than Reaper.
Ash is 3. That feels quite high, actually. I don't know if Ash should be 3. Maybe 2.5 for Ash's
I
value
remember
point.
3 because it was Bob.
That's true. But I feel like you'd have to hit a higher proportion of your shots with Ash than with Soldier.
For sure.
Or you know what I mean?
For
Like,
sure. I
Gepper.
think kit difficulty is definitely Ash and like aim difficulty, but I think you could argue that Bob is
Yeah,
as
yeah,
strong.
you're right. So 3?
Yeah. We also have to keep in mind too is that we're keeping in mind the overall strength of the hero as well. And Ash is definitely a stronger hero than Soldier. And if we're talking floor, we're not talking bronze necessarily. We're talking you're decent at the hero, right? Maybe you're a plat Ash, plat Soldier, or something like that. And across maps, right? Like the Soldier's gonna be better in some maps, Ash is gonna be better in like that one's close for me.
Yeah. Ceiling caps out, I think. Ceiling caps out. Like, there's only so much you can. Actually, another interesting discussion I had about this is that this applies to McCree too, but Soldier and McCree, it's funny that they're heroes that require you to aim until you press their ultimate.
Yeah.
And that actually inherently puts a ceiling on how much you can get.
True.
Because it's like every Soldier 76 in the same position will get the same value from Tac Visor, right? Like all things equal.
Which is why those ultimates are like aren't super like Tac Visor doesn't headshot. High Noon, you can't move. So there's only so much you can get out of that ultimate because
exactly
if they made it stronger, then it'd be obnoxiously oppressive. You know what I'm saying? Because it's aimbot, right? So it's like you can't really balance those ultimates, especially considering that that's an ultimate that's really oppressive at lower ranks. Can you imagine if they made like Tactical Visor do like 10% more damage or 20% more damage? At
Yeah,
higher
just
ranks,
base.
it wouldn't change too much. In lower ranks, it'd just demolish people. So it's like value ceiling is like, is there hard gimp because they have these gimped ultimates because the game doesn't want them to be too strong, but that really hurts their value at higher ranks. So I think, like, what are your thoughts on ceiling?
I think she has a less value ceiling than even Pharah. I think like Pharah's 2.5.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Like, are you really gonna see Soldier take over a game in the way that Pharah does?
Yeah.
Like,
No.
no, right? So I think like a
2
2.
makes sense. Yeah, I agree with the 2.
I think it's slightly more than Junkrat,
Yeah.
which is fair. I think like you can, again, his malleability means that he can get value everywhere.
I agree with the 2.
But it's gonna cap out.
Yeah, I think that's a good rating. Buffs, nerfs. So actually for a long time I used to say that like Soldier is like one of the heroes I really hated because I think that he was just he's like one of those heroes, like he's tough to justify outside of, like you said, the introduction to COD, like, hey, you guys are new here, try this hero. So like I don't think you touch Soldier right now. I think he does his job. He's not trashed here. His ultimate's pretty weak. His utility's pretty weak. I think his design is kind of meh. But honestly, Soldier might just be one of the heroes that, if Overwatch 2 goes well and the game continues to release heroes and we're all here, 10 years from now talking about it, Soldier might be the hero that hasn't changed in 15 years. That might be Soldier, and I don't think I would not want him changed particularly too much. I think his kit is too basic for him to really justify buffs.
Yeah, you don't want Soldier to be meta, basically. I mean, sorry, AKM, but
agreed.
it's just how it is.
Boring.
Like, you don't really want this guy to be top tier.
I would unironically rather watch Sombra or Tracer. Or Sombra or Tracer's fun to watch, but Sombra or Widow that I would Soldier.
Fun against. Yeah, I think it's fine. Nobody like, you're not ever mad. I don't think you're never mad. He's kind of bored. It's so funny because he's like sits with his lore so well. He's like the dad character, and he's just equally boring. Like inoffensive in every way. He's just like, yeah, okay, you can exist. I don't really care. Like,
super boring. The only annoying thing about Soldier is the fact that his kit lends itself to hard flanking, and you can die to silly stuff. But
yeah, I know this. This happened to me recently. Yeah. I did supporter plugs, and there was just like there was just a Soldier in my backline all the time.
So I don't know. I don't. It's hard to justify anything. Certainly not lower than a 3. 3.5, 4. I don't know. He's just completely inoffensive in every possible way.
I think 3 because it would be deceptive to say he's fun to play against, right? Like you're never like, what a fun time I had dueling that Soldier.
That's true.
It's like,
that's true.
It's just like boring. That's true. Right? It's just boring. So I think 3 is fine.
But we also have to keep in mind that we're not going to be grading any DPS above a 3, likely, if that's going to be the case.
Probably. I actually, that's why I go back and I think like fighting a Genji for me would probably be the most skill-based matchup, but we'll see. Because I don't think like there's that. I don't think he can pull bullshit on you other than the blade. He can't really like pull a bullshit move on you.
This is where we might have to just kind of like accidentally incorporate our support and tank ratings ahead of time, because we're both thinking, oh, Winston's the 4, Winston's the 4, or Winston's 3.5, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. There's like a clear. But there should always be a clear path, I think, of like how to play with or against this hero.
And I think it's okay that we have DPS and tank kind of compared a little bit to supports and stuff. But quick side note, I actually found in my tier list that I rated tanks across the board as harder to play than DPS in terms of skill floor, value floor, and skill ceiling and value ceiling, with few exceptions. Like there were a lot of DPS and even a couple supports that had ridiculously low value floors and skill floors, but there were very few tanks that did. Like none. I think Hog was like the easiest one.
For sure.
Anyway, I don't want to get off topic. Sombra,
sure.
Skill floor. What do you think?
I think it's really tough actually to get into Sombra. It's just like, because it's like you can, again, this is a little bit bleeding into value floor, but I think it's relevant that most people don't understand that if you pick Sombra and you're not actually doing something, you're just like non-existent in the game. Sometimes literally, because sometimes you just see people invis perma all the time and they're literally not doing anything, but you have to like actually contribute, because otherwise just pound for pound she's about the weakest DPS there is. So I'm going right up. I'd go right up there, like 3 maybe.
I would go higher than that. I would go even higher than that, because like you compare her to skill floor to something like a Doomfist. Do you really think Doomfist first off had a 3.5? I mean, obviously it's map specific. Sombra does benefit the fact that there are no real bad maps for Sombra, but I would say 3.5.
Yeah. No, 3 was like the minimum, is what I'm saying. But yeah, I agree with you.
Because it is
like, I'm just trying to think, is she harder than Doomed entry level?
I mean, in some ways, yes.
Probably not entry level. I think
maybe not
to master her might be harder, but like,
because my problem with Sombra is it feels like she's one of those heroes that people don't really know why they play her. They don't really know what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
Like with Doomfist, at least you kind of have an idea of what your role is. Like punching tanks are gonna go kill the Zenyatta, you know. But with Sombra, like nobody really knows. Like how many times, even at like Diamond Masters, have I heard? And I'm gonna go with Sombra and hack the Rein, and we kill the Rein. Like that's just not how it works. Like it
just never happens because that's the plan, right. And then they just interrupt you.
And then they interrupt you, and then you translocate out again, and then you start all over again. So like to me, it's like to actually understand like what your role is with Sombra, to time properly, to translocate her, to know, and like people hacking health packs across the map. I'm like, what are you doing? Like it's like I think that she's one of a very unintuitive hero, I think, is a way of describing it. Like when we considered Soldier, we considered somebody who has a lot of mechanics, who has Helix Rocket and things like that, but he still scored really low in the skill floor because he's a very intuitive hero design, right? It just makes sense. It's very easy to pick up. When I look at Sombra, it's very unintuitive. Like, how would you describe Sombra to somebody who doesn't play Overwatch?
Well, the funny thing is, I don't think it's like what she does is not uncommon. Like, if you were to tell a mobile player, you'd be like, oh, she's a silence hero.
Right.
But actually how that's executed in the game, where it's actually super like fast paced and there's stuff that interrupts you all the time.
Right.
It's like near impossible to just be like, oh yeah, just go Sombra silence. Right. Even though people will say it, which again just is a testament to how misunderstood people often, people are like, just go Sombra, man. And it's like, well. Yeah. Do you know why?
Yeah, exactly. I think 3.5. I don't think there are many heroes that are harder to play at baseline. Very, very few.
Well, that's the thing. Are we thinking 4, or 3.5?
I think
at some point we tend to
as long as Widow exists, and to an extent Tracer, and honestly, heck, even Winston, you can make an argument for it. I think that 4 has to remain open or at least contested. Maybe we can go back and adjust.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue though that yes, it's. I suppose it's. Yeah, Widowmaker is tough because it just depends how highly you rate hit scan.
I'm gonna cheat here.
It's like how highly do you?
I'm gonna cheat here. My thing with the Widow and why I grade her as a 4 is not because it's just mechanics. It's because the way Overwatch works with the amount of counterplay, Tracer, Widow, Ball, etc. You have to position properly, and you also have to understand how and when to flank and how to take angles. Like the problem with Overwatch is not every point is a Volskaya point A defense where you can just sit and click heads, right? There are so many circumstances where you have to know, how do I break this joke? And remember, 65-70% of maps that you're playing Widow on, I think at a base level floor, that's extremely difficult for new players to find value. But I guess we cross that road.
True, but the counter to that would be that the at the lowest levels, people also give you more opportunity, right? So we're thinking
that's true.
Yes, it's very difficult to find an angle, but at like silver, people are flying around in front of shields, like outside of their shields all the time as well.
True. Like in plat and stuff and gold, you don't necessarily have to min max that position. That's true.
Yeah, so I actually think I feel like you can get probably more value, it would probably be. It's so tough. Skill is such a loaded term.
Yeah.
Such a loaded term.
Yeah.
Because you say to someone, well, Sombra's actually requires more skill to get into, and they'll kind of bite your hand off. But it's like with Widowmaker, are you good at hit scan? Okay, well, you're fine then. And it's like Sombra, you could be good at hit scan and still be doo-doo.
Yeah.
Right? You could be a good aimer and still get no value.
Yeah.
Or you can be still not be able to operate her kit properly.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We'll talk more about it when we get to Widow. What do you want to do? Sit at 3.5 and revisit?
Yeah, let's just go 3.5 and then we can get this discussion going again if we want to bump anyone. Okay.
Ceiling. I think ceiling wise, she's 3.5 as well, maybe 3. My hesitation. Okay, so here's my hesitation with Sombra. She's like a lot of heroes. She's like more meta dependent with like the ceiling. Recently, like Reaper, Sombra, Winston, Diva, Moira, Lucio was meta for about a month in contenders. And it was not an easy meta for Sombra, but it was not a hard meta. We figured out like you off angle, you hard pocket your Sombra. Sombra basically just holds mouse 1, and then she looks for hacks if she gets it. But she doesn't have to do anything cute, crazy, brilliant.
Yes.
But that was still harder work than most DPS put in a meta. And there are metas like we saw recently on the Overwatch League show matches. Excuse me. Where it was like a Brig Zen meta with Sombra. and with that like extra spam damage, right? And that's a lot harder, and especially when you incorporate ball into the equation. Like ball is simultaneously countered by Sombra and a counter to Sombra because your translocator placement becomes a lot more difficult. I think it's very difficult with Sombra, and having a good Sombra at that top level in most metas is a huge deal. I mean, heck, like it obviously was I don't know if you guys remember this, but for those of you who follow Overwatch League, Boston traded Note to Dallas Fuel for RCK. This was like back in season 2, just so they could have a Sombra specialist, or a D.Va that could play Sombra. There was a exchange of thousands of dollars and contracts and all that stuff just for one player that knew how to play Sombra, you know, and like, you know, that's like that to there is like that specialization is a big deal. So I think 3 at least, probably 3.5 for me.
Yeah, I think so. Genji and Doomfist are the ones at 3.5.
Yeah.
And I think where they struggle with mechanical execution, again with Sombra, it's more about like physical, like you know, mental execution, you could call it, like to figure out the timing, who to hack,
exactly,
you know, when to decloak, where to decloak is actually a sort of ever shifting conundrum.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. I think
so. I think 3.5 could be fair.
Yeah.
I think it's like a very, very tricky hero, very like tricky. Brainy hero.
Yes. Very, very brainy hero, but also, yeah. Well, we'll get to this more too because she's also hated because some of the ways that she gets her value can feel cheesy.
Yes. Yeah.
So value floor.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Value floor. Again, this is literally as low as it gets. This is literally as low as it gets. You can do nothing. You could do nothing with this hero. Yes. And the thing is, you could do nothing and think you're doing a lot.
Yes.
That is the worst part about it. Like you can be doing
guys, I hacked
god
6.
awful nothing.
Wait, we're in spawn, Sombra. Why don't you follow up on my EMP?
or just standing invis. I see so many. Yeah. God tell you God, there's so many Sombras. They're invis like 80% of their there should be an invis uptime stats to help like low level Sombras. Can I take
10 seconds to quickly pitch an idea to the Sombra players in chat? Like just 10 seconds, coach. All right, Sombras, if you want one quick adjustment against most compositions, unless they're playing like snipers, what I want you to do in Sombra is take a slight off angle, just slight, and just hold mouse 1 in the enemy team. So your supports can heal you, and you just hold mouse 1. If they engage on you or push you hack them. If they engage in your team or push your team, you hack them. But you just hold mouse 1, and you just 80-80 strafe, you get your ultimate faster, you put pressure from an angle, and then you look for opportunities to hack based off that positioning. You do not have to stage backline unless they're running like a Widowmaker or something goofy like that. All right, that's my spiel.
Thank you. I think that hopefully will go a long way, but you never know, because I just see like the number of Sombras who just invis, and then they think like calling out positioning is helpful in gold, where like it really isn't.
Yep. Agreed.
So this is as low as it gets.
Agreed. I mean, I have no argument there.
Ceiling, again, this is a little bit meta dependent. Yes.
I think three probably.
Yeah, because she's a hero capable of taking over games, and defining games. Yep.
It could very easily be a 4 if the right meta was there. But in most situations, probably at least a 3 would be probably.
I think right now you have to say 3. I think because like, you know, it's not like Echo Ashe levels of like you have to pick. Even though Ashe is 3, but like, you know, you definitely It's not like you have to pick this hero.
Right. I agree with that. Buffs, nerfs. I have a hot take on this one. Again, I keep saying that, but they're not really that hot. I think she's just a terrible hero. I honestly just think she's a terrible hero. Like, I don't play as much tank as I used to. I have never really played in a Sombra meta, at least competitively. But I just think she's just a terrible hero. She's a hero that's literally designed to not let you play the game, to not use the abilities that you were given in Overwatch. And there is counterplay, you know, and that's something that you see, especially in the higher tiers, people learning how to cancel, hack, and position themselves around that. But you know, ultimately, she's a hero that either like is designed to find value out of stopping you from building your ultimate. And even if she doesn't get very many manual hacks, in other words, she doesn't get many right click or non-EMP hacks, you're farming EMP. Like, that's your job. Like, you're farming a EMP, which is going to hack people. So like, I don't think that she is somebody I'd buff or nerf. I don't know what I'd do. I want to knock a Jeff Kaplan's house, be like, can we just remove this hero? Because like, there's not many, like, I don't think there's a single hero in the game that I unironically want to remove. Bastion, I can see existing, but needs heavy reworking. Same with Junkrat. Symmetra Torb, I think the reworks have done great. I think they could use more work, but I think they've done... I don't know how you rework Sombra. I don't know how you rework Hack.
Yeah, see, I'm very MOBA centric whenever I come to my approach to Overwatch, because that's my history. Like, I played a lot of MOBAs before I came to Overwatch, and I like the idea of a silence in the game. I think it's just poorly executed into the game, because when I think about silences in MOBAs, they're like small interruptions. The problem with Hack and EMP is that they're gigantic interruptions.
Right. That's actually a good
they're
point.
Like, the Hack lasts for way too long. Like, it leaves you powerless for way too long, and so does EMP. And also, like, obviously it strips off like beat and stuff. Yes. So there's like very little counterplay to that. Whereas in a MOBA game, first of all, you usually have to use your own cooldown to try and prevent one of theirs, right? So you're trading a resource. Whereas again, you can hack and okay, you didn't make it, like try it again like a little bit, just very quickly later. And once you get it off, it's like disproportionate value. So the problem, I think, if there was something to change about Hack, is that it should be like a very, very short hack, so that it's less of like a you're completely useless, and it's more like I just stopped you for a 2-second window to do something very specific.
Yes, that makes a lot. That makes a lot more sense.
I think that's the difference.
Yeah, that definitely lines up with what I would like to see if I were to see something. And I think unequivocally, okay, here's a hot take as well. I actually think that the nerf that they did to perma-stealth is one of the worst things that they could have done for her as well. I think stealth, what it didn't do, it encouraged that playstyle of like, not only was it a huge advantage in terms of scouting, which at pro play has huge ramifications, but it also meant that she was balanced around, hey, you could just sit permanently in stealth. And you know, like you were complaining about the Sombra sit permanently in stealth. It encouraged that playstyle of, oh, you just kind of sit AFK until something happens. You look for hack, you don't get it, you translocate out. Like, why? I don't like that. I'm glad that they took away the health pack ultimate charge. I think that was dumb. But I don't think perma-stealth makes a lot of sense. I think like having a temporary stealth or something, some way to rework that or something, but I'm not a huge fan of temporary. Like you can compensate elsewhere, like upper damage again, I don't really care, or reducer spread, probably not upper damage. But yeah, anyway, that's my take on it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I don't necessarily have like a thing to add on to it, because I think Sombra's another one of those heroes who's very niche, and I would love to hear the opinions of like a Fitzy on this, who like really understand intimately how it would change the hero to have like every little aspect of it change. So I don't know what like a fair invis time is, right? But I would be very curious to hear what it could be.
Although we have to say though, like the way we're suggesting or discussing it is, we would have to compensate her elsewhere, but we are seeing a broad, like I definitely need to put an asterisk there.
Yeah, I think buffs, nerfs, asterisks.
And it's, we can't, I'm scared to nerf her because she is already so bad in lower ranks that you don't want to touch her too much.
Well, yeah, we've already look at all these things, right? We're saying like this is like the hardest hero to play, hardest hero to master. Like you can get absolutely no value. So theoretically, everything says this hero should be good.
Although we have already given the pass to a couple heroes, for example, like Soldier, to be the easy entry heroes that are bad at higher ranks. We should also be comfortable on the flip side having a couple heroes that are bad at lower ranks. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, that's I'm totally cool with that. Like, I don't think Sombra has to be a hero that like you play in gold.
Okay. Fun against, I mean, one. I can't think of
yeah, no, there's no, I don't think there's any argument that like people hate playing against Sombra.
Everybody hates Sombra. I hate Sombra as a Zen main. I hated Sombra when I was a tank main. If you're Echo player, Tracer player, Ball player, Winston player, Diva player, Ryan player, everybody hates Sombra. That's like the new TV show thing, you know? Everybody hates Sombra, you know.
Well, again, yeah, nobody.
Fridays 3 p.m. EST.
Again, exactly, coming to you. Nobody's like, that was good, that was fun playing against that Sombra. No.
The only satisfying thing on Sombra is they turn on to hack you as Zen, and you turn on and you shoot them in the head twice.
But yeah, it's like, why are you hacking me, bro? I'll just kill you.
I've never done that, so I can't speak from experience. But you know, it sounds nice, theoretically nice in some heavenly place. Okay.
When I dream about it, it feels nice.
Skill floor for Symmetra. This is me. Okay. Skill floor. Actually, okay, so this is an unusual one. People are gonna. This is my hot take hero, I think. Skill floor for Symmetra, I think, is actually either 2 or 2.5. I actually think she's another one of those a little bit unintuitive heroes. And the fact that how you use your TP, how you use your turrets, left click versus right click, and oh my gosh, ultimate. You would be surprised at how many people do not understand like how to use her ultimate. So I think and especially now that they've like given her a mechanical capability as well. In other words, like left click doesn't just lock, so you actually have to know your mechanics. So again, we're not talking value here. Like to be competent, you have to actually aim with Symmetra. I think that she's higher than most. Like I look at somebody like a Soldier, and I would say she's trickier to play than Soldier. I would say, you know, maybe on a Mei level, like a 2.5. And I know people are gonna make fun of me, but like again, the TP, the turrets, the left click versus right click, the ultimate, and again the mechanical aspect as well, which used to not be an issue, it is now. And for you to be considered at a skill floor level of Symmetra, you kind of have to know what you're doing there. So I actually think that she's significantly harder than she used to play, at least to get to a base level.
Yeah, I'm having a think. I think I'm thinking between 2 and 2.5. The 2 comes from there's a very interesting phenomenon with Symmetra in that because she was a hero designed to be accessible and had the lock-on aim mechanic, it invited a lot of people to play Symmetra, and people consequently, despite her many reworks, and you have to remember she's gone through like the most reworks. For that reason, people have still stuck with her, and so you still see a lot of Symmetra at the lowest ranks. And but you know, left clicking is very, very difficult, obviously very tricky. The teleporting is very tricky to actually get right. However, the one thing that sticks out for not going 2.5 is the turrets. Because the turrets are your brain dead execution, basically. You just throw turrets in people's backline and they will die.
That's true.
At least at the lowest, right? At least at the lowest base.
That's true. But see,
so for that, I would go 2.
That's true. But my argument then is that if that's the tier that you're playing Symmetra, then our skill floor is like we're shifting here. We're living in like San Francisco, kind of an earthquake, you know. Because like when I say skill floor, I'm saying they're playing at like a base competency level, not just randomly throwing crap at the enemy team.
No, but even like so, you know, like, compared to Mei, for example, I think even in bronze, like if you put the wall up right, I like to put the wall up right would require a lot of knowledge, right? Like would require an understanding of when and how to put the wall up. Compared to wherever you throw the turrets, as long as they're within range of someone, they'll probably
that's fair.
Get value.
I can live
they'll
with
probably
2.
do their job.
I can live with 2, but I'm gonna die on the next one because I know this is gonna be unpopular.
What is this?
I know this is not my category, so I think her skill ceiling is 1.5. And I know that's unpopular because everyone always whips out the same argument. But what about teleporter? The problem is even at the highest ranks, teleporter is like there's it's used for the same purpose, basically for flanking, for very specific points, for very specific things. And if you're playing Symmetra, there's only a couple of teleporters that actually make sense for you to use. Symmetra is not a ranged hero, so the way you use teleporter is actually relatively limited. It has to be either a team play or like, and that's basically it. Because I remember when teleporter first came out, everyone's like, this is literally game changing for Overwatch. We're going to be TPing Diva bombs. We're going to be TPing 6-man units. And everyone was like, this is insane. This is crazy. And it was for a little bit. And then they kind of settled down and people realized, okay, there's counterplay to it. You know, it's not, you know, you can TP in the middle of the enemy team and just instantly die. You know, like it's not a game changer as much as people thought it was. So by that reasoning, you then look at the rest of her kit and it's similar to Hanzo. It's tricky to understand at first, but once you get it, once you know, I use my ultimate to split the battlefield and I use my mouse 1 in close range, mouse 2 at longer ranges. And obviously I'm generalizing here. And then obviously, like you said, the teleporter or the TP, or not the TP, turrets, I don't see a lot of complexity to how she's played. And I can tell you from coaching Symmetra in contenders and coaching tier 3 players with her as well, like how she was used at the pro level, there wasn't a lot to her. There just wasn't a lot to her. You know, the turrets was mostly the same. Secondary versus primary fire is mostly the same. Mechanics, there's like, obviously mechanics are important there, but her mechanical level in comparison to other heroes isn't as high. And then there wasn't a lot you could do with teleporter either. Like it was pretty straightforward. And I like when we compare her to somebody like a Bastion in terms of skill ceiling, I think I know that stings, but to me they're comparable in terms of like min-maxing, like how hard is it to get really good at Symmetra. I think it's about the same as Bastion. Even in coordinated play.
Yeah,
coordinated play.
I'm digesting that. I kind of, you're convinced me, like, I feel like the teleporter could be so much more. and there could be so much more done with it. But I think it would need to be a more dynamic cooldown than it currently is. That's probably the biggest issue, is that it's like such a it's like a one-time use, and it's like so limited.
And the tricky thing about Teleporter
there's so much that could be done,
is that the compositions that you have to run Symmetra in, because she's a brawl hero, right? Like you can't play her into dive, you can't play her to spam. The compositions that she's played in are brawl compositions. Brawl compositions aren't going to take advantage of being mobilized around the map as much. It's going to be very one-dimensional. You bypass a choke, or you get to a high ground, and that's basically it. You can't go for crazy flank, set up a Widow here. Like you're running Symmetra, like you're probably playing Symmetra Mei, or Symmetra Reaper, or Symmetra Junkrat. So it's like there's not like Control Center, for example, Lijiang Tower. You'd bypass a choke. That's how you use Teleport. Everybody did it. That was just how you did it, and that was it. That was like the level of complexity right there. So I don't think that there is an endless amount of complexity with Teleporter, at least in the type of composition she's running right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I mean, there is the chat is telling me like the Sim Bastion strats can get quite creative. The bunkers can get quite creative. Right. But that's, I think it could be more than in its current iteration. It is quite limited. It's just like TP back and forth between two locations, basically, usually is what it is. So yeah, I think it could be more. I would actually be interested, having heard that, to like see Teleporter realized a bit better. But for the time being,
maybe buff up TP and remove turrets. I know people would be thrilled about, like, maybe not thrilled, because I think some people don't like TP very much, but like certainly would be cool. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I think the turrets are like another outdated, like we've kind of moved past turrets being a thing.
Agreed. Okay, value floor.
Okay, value floor.
You take this one, because I took the last one.
No, yeah, I mean, I think, again, similar to what I was telling you, there is like the easy out of the turrets, and again, it just depends how low you're carrying the floor. But if you're going as low as bronze, silver, there's a lot of value to be had in those turrets. But if we're taking even gold as low value floor, or if we're saying like, hey, you pick her at GM, and what's her value floor, it's garbage. Like, apart from in specific situations, like, yes, in Control, it's like great value because you get that little bit of extra boost out of spawn. But it's tricky. It really is tricky where you say the floor is. I think if you're saying in most situations, in most ranks,
most maps too, we have to keep in mind.
Yeah, then quite low.
I would say probably 2.
But again, we kind of gave Bastion like a 4, right? So compared to his maximum output, I suppose that's the real key to really think about. Like, compared to her maximum value, how much has she had her minimum value at all times?
Yeah, that's true.
And probably quite high, right? Actually, think about it in those terms. Obviously her beam charge is up, but if you're executing a TP and if you're throwing turrets, you're probably getting as much value as you're gonna get.
Yeah, there's not a lot. Yeah, exactly. I think you're contributing. Like it's similar to like the skill floor, skill ceiling thing, but there's not as big of a gap between a bad, and a good Symmetra. There's not as there are with other heroes. Yeah, I think 2, probably 2.5, maybe, depending on like but I think if you incorporate the map argument, which is like most maps, I don't think you can go higher than 2 comfortably.
Yeah, I think 2. Looking at some of the other heroes we put at 2, I think like for Hanzo Genji at 2, Mei at 2. She'll give you some value, I guess. It's a little bit tricky with her because she's so niche.
Heroes are rough, and the same thing, you incorporate this with ceiling as well, because it is a niche hero. The ceiling is very low. You're not going to have a good time playing her on most maps. Some maps, like she's very meta on Lijiang on 2 out of the 3 points, and you can actually play her well on all 3 of the points, actually. TPing the point at the pro level. But it's really just that map. You can play her on other maps. She's actually pretty darn good in Brawl. The 25 HP nerf is actually pretty big. So I would not give her a Junkrat level of low. Actually, I would give her higher than Junkrat for sure. So I would say certainly a 2. I would say probably a solid 2. And that's dependent on meta. That could be a 3 if it was a good meta. It could be a 1.5 if it's a bad meta. But I mean, you still see Symmetra OTPs and GM, and that kind of should tell you that the hero is still playable. You just have to be a little cuter with it.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. Like, she does feel in the Doomfist Junkrat area for me, which is 1.5.
I think you have to remember though, it's a 25 HP.
Yeah, there is a little bit
25
more.
25 HP is big.
Okay, there's a little bit more. I'll go with that. Buffs or nerfs?
I mean, you kind of talked about it. Get rid of turrets, and then we'll talk. I'd be happy to buff her. I'd be happy to. I'd be happy to increase her skill floor and her value floor. But those got to go up first. The skill floor's got to go up first. We get rid of turrets, then we can talk. And I don't love her right click either. I think that's another archaic aspect of her. I love it. Like, I don't know how you'd rework that, but like, right click is very skillful in close range. It's not very skillful, but it's relatively skillful in close ranges, right? It takes a little bit of aim, but like, we all hate the massive like basketballs flying at us doing like 100 something damage.
Yeah.
So like, not so much fun, but I'm very happy. I do regard her as one of the more successful reworks Blizzard's done. I like the TP rework. The primary fire, her ultimate is weird for me. I can't tell if it's really strong. I can't tell if it's really bad or not, but yeah, it is what it is.
It's really strong. I can't tell if it's really bad.
As in really bad, as in like really bad to play against, like because it's this massive wall.
Oh,
right. Are you joking me?
It's like once it's up, you're just that's it. Like you're not breaking it basically. Is the kind of thing about it. You have to whole hog it,
or that's it, or like high noon, like 5 people or something like that. But yeah, fun against. You take this one.
Yeah, fun against. I mean, she's not the worst, to be fair. There's worse ways to die. Let's put it that way. So I don't think she's anywhere like at the bottom. Maybe like a 2.5. I think, although the turrets are very obnoxious.
I would say 2, to be honest.
Yeah. 2? Yeah, I can get behind a 2 as well.
We put McCree at 2.5, and that was almost solely for Flash Fan. And we're talking about turrets.
Well, he'd be higher if it wasn't for that, right? He'd be like like 3 or 4 if it wasn't.
But
for
like to me, turrets honestly, turrets are annoying. And then we talked about right click spam, which is a little annoying, and ultimate, which is also a little annoying. Because like her ultimate's like, how do I counterplay that? Like especially in ranked, like what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Like obviously, like if there's a lot of bad Symmetras that don't know how to use it, but if you have like even a halfway decent Symmetra, just splits the battlefield. There is no counterplay to it. There just isn't. Like you either like hopefully all your ranked teammates pick the right side and just stay over there, or you like. But there is like even in like competitive play, like it's like what do you do? Like it's rough. So I think 2 for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can get behind that. I think so.
Okay.
I think it's also one of those things where you don't see her a lot, so you don't necessarily get to judge this question a lot.
True.
You don't really know, like in a world where Symmetra was dominant, how would we feel then? Probably, even lower, but we'll see.
We'll see. But yeah, anyway. Okay, we're almost done, man. Torb skill floor. Why don't you take this? Why don't you start here? Because I'm pretty sure I'd start with the Symmetra one.
Skill floor. See, this is again. It's like it's really interesting actually having had this discussion. Like it's really given a good chance to reflect on the Overwatch roster. There's already like a few themes that are emerging. One, there's a lot of like outdated elements to the heroes, and maybe this is something for them to consider in Overwatch 2 to like just strip a lot. Like there's a lot of fat on these heroes, not
for sure,
not like physically, metaphorically. There's a lot of fat here to be cut.
No.
Yeah, we're on tour. It's like, and there's also a lot of like needless spam crap. The more I look at it, it's like Symmetra. We spoke about like Hanzo having needless spam crap. It's just like, it feels like, for example, if we just dwell on Symmetra for a second, it's like they tried to give her like something to do in every scenario, whereas actually I'd probably rather they double down and just make the hero, you play her in this scenario. Yeah. Whereas what they end up sometimes doing is try to make a hero middling in every scenario, right? So it's like, oh, well, you have a left click that eats shields, and you also have a right click to spam, and you have turrets to throw out, which can slow and be tactical zone control, but then you've also got to TP to TP people around. So it's like
the goal with hero balance,
many confused elements.
Right. I think the goal with hero balance is to create something of a signature where play styles can find ways of interpreting it in different situations. Instead of giving heroes kits that can fit multiple different situations, give play heroes kits that have a signature, have a goal, but then you can, if your creative player can take that and find a way to work around it elsewhere.
Well, that's exactly what we spoke with Yasin, right? It's like, this kit is very one-dimensional. You fly and you shoot. But a skillful player will find ways to make that fit in niche scenarios.
Exactly.
And I feel like, so to bring it back to why you asked, like, Torb feels like this as well, because you obviously, some of you may not have been playing the game since original Torb, where they actually reworked him quite a lot. He used to have like these armor packs that he'd chuck around. God, that feels like an age ago, where he actually like he would give
Goofy,
other people
man.
armor at the start of the
Walking
game.
over people's
And it was-
bodies to pick up armor. I was like, what? That wasn't real, was it? Was that like a fever dream? Like
can you imagine?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's just it's so weird. So in that era of Torb, the turret was like the defining factor of Torb, where you like sat there to try and heal him all the time, and when you molten cord, your turret became like
It's like a
supercharged.
rocket launcher, man.
And now his turret, it still feels like some relic to that,
Yeah.
because I actually think the rest of Torb's kit is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like, you know, his left click, right click, his molten core is pretty
Yeah.
cool. But then you add the turret equation, and then it's like it just changes what
Yeah.
he's trying to be.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so before we get to the buffs nerfs, because there's going to be some interesting discussion for sure with Torb. Skill floor, what do you think?
This is what I was trying to deliberate, basically. I think like the turret just gives you a skill, like gives you an out.
Oh yeah.
Like it actually, there is a lot of like mechanics required to, you know, hit your shots with Torb, but the turret just gives you such an out that it can't be higher than 2, I'd say.
The thing is like we always compare the value floor and skill floor and how similar they are. But the thing is like when we're talking about having an easy aspect of the hero, we're not just saying that, oh, it's making the hero easy to play. We're making it so that there's one fewer aspect of the hero that you have to put a lot of thought into, right? So when you're thinking about Torbjorn, you don't, like, turret placement is a little tricky, but but it's not that hard. And then that's one entire cooldown essentially that you don't think about. It's completely gone. So you can focus on one aspect of your gameplay. And for me, Torbjorn has a very low skill floor. He's a spammy hero, right? Like his left click is designed for spam. Turret is not particularly hard, so you don't have to think about that at all. His ultimate is very straightforward, not a lot of complexity to it, pretty basic. And then I actually think his overload, which I think is relatively balanced, it's fine, but I think that's also easy to use. Again, very straightforward. Faster fire rate, faster move rate. It's survivability, essentially. And again, there's ways of min-maxing it for, like, you get an extra spam damage and you can use the extra speed and, like, you know, different ways of placing turret. But I don't think actually Torb is, like, I would say Torb is probably even easier than Symmetra in terms of skill floor. But I'm unsure because
I can agree with that.
The only way that I could say him on par is because of the mechanics, because obviously he does require a little more aim than Symmetra, a little more aim. But I actually think I think he's very comparable to Symmetra in a lot of ways in terms of skill floor.
I think thinking about it though, he has more crutches than Symmetra, basically. Yeah. You know, not only the turret but also the overload that you mentioned. It's like you're dying, oh, just overload. Now sucks to them for trying to kill you.
That's true.
Because you'll probably live now. So I think 1.5 could be fair. Like, let's just see who else is 1.5 for a sec.
Soldier.
Reaper. Soldier. Yeah, I don't think he's harder than Reaper or Soldier to get into, right? Like, you can't say that he is.
I agree with that. And then in terms
terms
of ceiling, like, so ceiling, I think with this hero is a little higher than his floor, because any aim dependent hero is going to benefit from ceiling. But again, it's not by much. Because, like, as a great player, I'm so much better with my overload timing. like how much harder is that ability going to be to use? Same thing with turret. And again, the ultimate as well. Like, is it really that much harder to use? So, you know, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, can we even push him to 1.2?
Skill ceiling 2? Yeah, I think 2 is probably fair.
All off of aim.
What else is 2?
It's only aim.
Junkrat is 2.
Okay, then I think
he's maybe a bit more than Junkrat. 2.5 for Soldier. Is he Soldier level of, like,
no
skill ceiling?
So I think yeah, it's literally just off of left click.
Yeah, but even the left click, like, it's a real encouragement to spam with the left click, isn't it? It's like to kind of spam in an area and hope you dink someone.
Yeah.
So I think 2 would be fair.
Symmetra just flip-flopped. Symmetra's a little easy, more straightforward at higher rings, less aim, but Torb's more forgiving in lower rings. Well, what do you think value floor here? Like, how good is this hero at lower rings?
he again, the turret is like MVP because people don't kill the turret. So, you know, although the kit doesn't necessarily make you think, well, the turret will be huge, but again, the fact that people don't kill it means that it just does value all the, like, you know, it's just chipping away, and building the Torb's ult, and then obviously that ult is also more valuable at the lowest ranks because people just don't run away from it.
I agree. 100% agree there.
So it's actually quite a high value. I'd say, like, not like super crazy high, but
3 or 3.5. What do you think?
I think 3. I don't think 3.5 because I think they're like, you don't get like crazy value out of it. It's not like Bastion level value.
I think also you have to keep in
right?
mind as well is that like he still has some map limitations. Like he's not amazing on more longer range maps. So he does have that like a little bit of a handicap.
Yeah, again, so comparing him to Junkrat, who's 3.5. I think again there is like, you could get less value with Torb in that sense of like, you could just miss all your shots and then your turret is in like a really dumb place and it gets killed and then you're not doing anything. Whereas like Junkrat is like, you're spamming, you're gonna get some connections.
Value ceiling for me is probably like 2 as well. Maybe a little higher. Like he's not terrible at higher ranks. Like Overload was a big deal for him. They've also fixed his shotgun, so his shotgun's not complete trash anymore. Because the shotgun was literally worthless. It did less damage than his primary fire, even to tanks at like point blank. But now it's good. The ult isn't great, but it's still okay. And like his gun is decent as well. So like I'd actually put him like probably on par, like either 2. I mean, Reapers 2, Soldiers 2. Man, maybe I could even get away with a 2.5 here. Like I look at Pharah and I'm like, I don't think he's as useful as Pharah, but he's close.
Yeah, it's tricky because we haven't got many people in that range. Just like, Pharah at 2.5 and then
so Torb is really the only thing that keeps me maybe keep him in the 2 is because he's not very good against snipers, and snipers have been pretty good as of recently. He's actually not terrible against Echo. His turret gets destroyed pretty easily, but if you can like combo hit scan plus Torb, that's a rough. Like Echo doesn't want to have to deal with turret and Torb and a hit scan. Like that gets to be annoying. But I don't know. It's a low 2.5 or a high 2 for me. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, you probably see more Torb at pro play than Reaper Soldier, right? Like, Torb has, I think, in recent times seen more pro play than those two heroes.
Torb fits his niche better, of like anti-dive better than he used to.
Yeah, which kind of like suggests that he has more value to be given. But at the same time, I don't really feel comfortable putting him in the same value ceiling as Pharah.
Yeah, I don't either. See, my only problem with Torb is he fits his archetype well, but he's almost never meta. Like he's never meta. So in other words, like you could play Brawl meta, Dive meta, Spam. You're never going to have Torb as your primary pick. He'll always be a counter swap, if that. So that's
I think
2. I think it's solid 2, but like probably higher than some of the other 2s that we've placed in here. Okay, this is a tricky one. So we're gonna try not take an hour on this one, but buffs, nerfs. What do you think?
We end up sometimes just taking the easy out and saying like, oh, just rework and tweak this hero in certain ways. I think if on balance, he's actually fine. Like, I don't really think he needs changing per se, because he's not really problematic in any way, and he's not really like causing an issue in any sense, and nor does he need to be good. So I think he's
fine. I think the only thing that I would consider is maybe finding a way to move him away from his turret, but at the same time, like, what is his archetype if he doesn't have turret? Like, what's his selling point? So that's why I hesitate. Like, maybe, like, remember back in the day, people used to spin like entire mega threads of like Torb turret ideas. Like, it could debuff, it could do this, it could be different types of turrets, and I think those would be things that'd be fun to consider. But I do consider him, along with Symmetra, one of the more successful reworks that they've done. Like, he's way less brain dead than he used to. So that's good, you know. So I'll take what I can get, you know.
Yeah, I think kudos to the Blizzard team for like taking him and then kind of making him, not brain dead essentially.
Agreed.
Not that, I don't necessarily think he's perfect. Like we said, I think a lot of these heroes have become outdated, but yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
Fun against. Outside the turret, there's nothing again problematic really.
It's like the Echo kind of situation where it's like super annoying against a very small set of heroes, but other people don't really care that much. Like Tracer, Genji, Sombra, like it's obnoxious. It's absolutely obnoxious to play against a Torb as those like couple of heroes. But for the rest of the cast, it's like, it's there, okay, you know. So I think we kind of have to balance that.
Also, there's an ineffable fun factor of like Torb the memester, and like everybody's just like, when hammer kills get involved, is like the fun factor goes
Well,
up.
that's not even fun. That's just like that's the Geneva Convention says you're not allowed to do that. So no Torb hammer kills. You can get in trouble with the the United Nations. I don't know. Like it's a 2 or a 2.5 for me, but I've like 2.5 almost feels too high, but I'm not sure.
I guess what we're saying in this category is just who's like offensive and inoffensive to die to, and Torb and like Soldier are kind of like inoffensive to die to.
Yeah.
So I think maybe like 2.5 is fine.
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
Because I don't think he's at like it's a bit more annoying to die to Symmetra because she slows you as well with her turret.
That's true. So. That's true. If you die to a Torb, it's usually because he was shooting at you. Rarely was it just his turret. So,
yeah, right. Yeah. If you die to his turret, then that's on you.
Yeah,
like, that's on you.
True. Okay, we're almost done. All right, skill floor Tracer. Oh man, I honestly feel like this is if there's gonna be a 4, it's probably gonna be with this hero.
Agreed.
I don't think like even if we included tanks and supports, like I just don't know that there's really any other hero that could be harder than Tracer at the very beginning of the game. Or not the very beginning of the game, but like you played at a base competency level, like you just die off a cooldown, man. You don't have a particularly oppressive ultimate. I think another thing with Tracer as well is her role is very hard to understand and hard to apply. It's confusing. It's like, I have no HP. How is this? Well, we have mobility. Okay, well, what do I do with that, right? And even if you do understand it, it takes a long time to understand like what she's supposed to do and what she's good at. And until you get there and you get your mechanics up to par and you get your cooldown usage up to par and you find some way to get some value out of your ultimate, which is like what? Like probably the second most difficult ultimate to use in the game. Then you're there. But like how long is that going to take? So I think skill floor is probably a solid 4.
Yeah, I agree. And I think one thing for anyone who's kind of maybe disagreeing with this that I would say is that her and Widowmaker are the only 2 heroes who are like on release level of like they're still relevant, because a lot of the heroes that we compare now when we think like meta and tough to play are like Ashe, Echo, like, oh yeah, these are skillful heroes that like get value, but the community has had less time with them, so actually figuring out the ins and outs of that hero is it feels tricky because we haven't just physically had as much time. People have been like one tricking Tracer since the start of the game and still like are constantly getting better, and I think that just testifies to, and like when she started, like when the game was fresh, like Tracer was like, you just wouldn't play her if you weren't really good. There's no point. You were just wasting your time. And yeah, I just think that she's
I think you just filled in the next number for us as well.
Yeah.
Along the way.
It's just like constant. It's just like, I mean, and yeah, I just think like anyone who's watched Pro Overwatch has to think that like this hero is.
I mean, it's unquestionable.
Like for on these 2, it has to be 4, right? Like we can discuss value and stuff, but she's always been the sort of the one trick hero, the one that you have to like have because when played at optimally, she just like is the hero.
Agreed. Value floor, value ceiling. For me, value floor is tricky because they did nerf her fall off, which is good. She no more Tracer sniper, right? Like that was obnoxious to play up against. So she is a little less strong in that thing. But I actually think because her skill floor is so high, we expect to see a low value floor. Like I expect like probably 2.5, maybe not even that. Like even when you play her at a base level, and you're still doing work, she's still like, okay, let me put it this way. She's meta, so she's not 1 or 1.5. And we're assuming that you're already playing her at a decent level, right? So you're not just brand new picking up the hero, how good are you doing? But I still don't think that she's like massively oppressive at this, like the mid tier.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think, yeah, obviously there's a very direct link with like how good you can move and aim to get your value, but I don't think she's like Sombra level of like,
no,
well, you could just do nothing, you know, like you could just do nothing.
No, I think if you're playing competently,
I'm trying to think, is anyone who's a 1.5? See, but go ahead.
I think if you're playing her competently, you are doing something. It's not going to be as much as if you were doing other heroes. 1.5 is Doomfist value floor.
Yeah. It might be a comparable level, but I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I think the argument was that, okay, you can get 1 kill with Doomfist, but how are you going to get multiple kills?
Right.
With Tracer, yeah, you could probably, assassinate one person, but if you're bad, will you continue to get value?
Let's just leave it at 2, but we're gonna have to disclaim it to make
I think
to make
fair.
sure that people need to understand that when we say value floor, we're saying you are already decent at her. You're not brand new at her. If you're brand new at her, you're at a solid 1. But if you've already reached the skill floor of the hero, you'll be a 2. You'll be a 2 consistently. But she's obviously, to get to that 2 takes a lot more work than it is in most heroes. Ceiling. What do you think?
Yeah, this is just I think
pretty straightforward.
Probably 4. Yeah,
she's strong. 4. Like, this is where we account for the skill ceiling, and the the strength of the hero. Basically, it's like X times Y. And right now we have a hero who, even after the nerf, is still very strong. Is also very hard, has a very immense ceiling, and so that's just oppressive. Like, the only thing that bullies Tracer out really is Brawl meta, where she's not as good. So I think unquestionably a 4 here.
Yeah, I think kudos to Blizzard for creating not just their flagship hero, but like a hero that this is kind of how you want it, right? Like, super hard to get into, but like the ceiling is near limitless. Like, people just keep getting better and better at Tracer and finding more and more to do.
I agree, and especially since they nerfed the fall off damage, which was, my opinion, was broken, was not in her design. Like, it's more, like, there's still counterplay. You just have to outplay her, and that's rough. Buffs, nerfs. I don't think anything. I think, like, the fall off damage thing, where she did damage, I think it was like there was no fall off for like an extra 3 meters. I think that was stupid. We've mentioned that multiple times. They fixed that. I don't have any feedback here. I think pulse bomb is fine. Damage is fine. Mobility is fine. Don't touch her.
Yeah, no, I'm down with that. I don't think there's anything that needs to be done. Fun against. I mean, this, again, people will be salty, but I think if I die to a Tracer, she's probably good. So I'm not mad.
Yeah, I think the only thing is it is because she is very strong. She can be very frustrating sometimes, but certainly not.
That's true. It can feel powerlessness again, like that powerlessness.
But certainly not to the level of Sombra, Torb, Symmetra, Reaper. I think you have to put her at a solid 3. With Genji. With Genji. Genji has Nano Blade. I mean, what about 3? What?
But there's more counterplay to Genji. Like, sometimes you can just get one clip by Tracer and there's nothing you could have done.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas I think that's very rare that a Genji just like insta deletes you.
Yeah, that's true. I think a solid 3 for Tracer.
Yeah, there's an argument for 3.5. But I think 3
is the wrong category, by the way.
Oh, that's the wrong category. No, buff the crap out of her. Make her super.
800 damage, has no fall off within like a 20-meter radius. Just it's a mini diva bomb now. Okay. All right, last hero. All right, this is crazy, man.
A very controversial one at that. Skill floor. Again, I think this becomes a loaded term of like, what is, like, how highly do you value mechanical ability? But I do think that you do need to be able to hit a lot of, like, you have to have very good aim to get some value out of this hero, like to play this hero. So it is quite high.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's like, I think what you brought up earlier was the best argument for not putting her at a 4, which is the fact that the enemy team is less likely to force you to position well in mid ranks. But I think you can't argue anything underneath a 3.5.
Yeah, I think it's either 3.5 or 4. The only thing, because the reason, like, I would say not 4 is, like, if you look at Tracer, there's like the mechanical element of hitting, and tracking is very hard at like those high speeds that you're moving, and you have blink management, and you have recall management.
True.
And like, yes, you have positioning as Widowmaker, but it's really not like the kind of intricacy of Tracer, blink, and moving.
The thing with Widowmaker positioning is it's very important, but it's one-dimensional. It's like where it's like if I could like draw out, like, it's a unilateral. It's like how far left, how far right. That's your Widowmaker positioning essentially. Do I grapple here? Do I grapple there? Do I grapple up? Do I stay? And the mind games that come along with it to an extent. But we don't even get into that necessarily until we hit the ceiling. So I definitely think that at least at a midline, the Tracer decision making is a little trickier than Widow. So I definitely agree with the 3.5.
Yeah. Okay,
ceiling is unquestionably 4. I mean, because it's not just the mechanical aspect, because you can always click heads better. It's because the impact that you can have with those clicked heads is huge. So it's like, it's not just like if you hit a body shot here, if you hit a headshot there, it's like there's always a chance to get a headshot with Widowmaker. There's always that, freeze frame shot, right? And even if you didn't have a robot playing Widowmaker, there's a lot of decision making in terms of positioning, game sense, enemy cooldown usage. I mean, a lot of times, I've coached a lot of Widowmaker, and like the Widow versus Widow duels. It's like a chess match. It's a big chess match about where you're peeking, when you're peeking. Do they know you're there? Do they pre-scope? Should you grapple this if they know where you are? And I think that's an added level of difficulty that most Widows just don't think about. A lot of low rank players is, you just click heads. That couldn't be further from the truth, especially at the higher rank. So I think unquestionably that puts your ceiling at a top level, because it isn't just mechanics. It's about setting yourself up at the right spot to use your mechanics.
Yeah, I'm literally trying to think devil's advocate of anything, like any argument I can think for like anything lower. I mean, let's see, Sombra's 3.5. I guess you could make the argument that Sombra actually is like mentally a lot trickier than Widowmaker, but again, when you factor the shooting, also, it's just like limitless, right? Like that's the reason why aimbots are on Widowmaker primarily, because this hero, like, there's no limit to like if you can like the more shots you can hit, like it's just limitless, right? It just gets limitless.
The one devil's advocate myself is the fact that her cooldowns they're not easy. They're relatively difficult, but they're straightforward. They're very straightforward. Your mobility, grapple, Venomine is either scouting or self-defense. Like that's basically it. So you have to learn how to. There's a relatively high skill floor for her cooldowns, but there's not a high skill ceiling for her cooldowns. So they're easy to. They're like once you got them, you got them. There's not anything cute you can do with them.
Yeah. I mean, there is an argument to put it 3.5. Like, is she as min-maxable as Tracer? Probably not.
Probably not. No.
Because like you can't, like as we said, you can always improve your mechanics as Tracer, and better your blink and your positioning and your engagement and understanding that you're like the flank patroller. Like there's a lot to think about. Whereas like you said, there is a lot of nuance to the Widowmaker angling, but again, it's kind of straightforward, right?
Yeah,
like,
it's tricky though, because it's like if it's a 4, it's barely. If it's a 3.5, it's a really high 3.5.
Yeah.
And it's like you also have to because I personally don't know, like for example, a player like Saya Player or a KSP, some of the best Widowmakers in the world, how many hours did they have to spend to get to that level? And they're not even at the ceiling necessarily. You know what I'm saying? Like how much time? I don't know. I know that it takes a lot of time, but I don't know how much time off of stream, on stream, ranked, Kovacs, whatever. And I think you have to encounter that, and I just don't know. So.
Yeah, and again, this sort of, and I genuinely don't know what the answer to this question is. Like, the what makes the waters a bit murky is that the skills that you need to practice Widowmaker are very transferable. So, like anyone who has a FPS background or an FPS future will come and be able to pick up Widowmaker's that element of her kit. Whereas, like it doesn't matter if you're a CS:GO pro, put you on Tracer and you're not doing doing shit.
You have no idea what you're doing.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So. It's like it kind of makes the waters murky because it is a skill that's been practiced, but of course a lot of people have already practiced.
Exactly. It's like learning how to run, but you already know how to walk, kind of a thing. I don't know, man. I have no idea.
I feel like the 4 should be rare. This is my just on a macro perspective. Oh shit! I accidentally click print. The 4 should. I'm out printing this, faxing it to Jeff.
Perfect.
4s should be like 1 per, like max 2 per, like not many people should have the 4 because what you're saying is this is like as much as it gets. And if 2 heroes are as much as it gets, well, now you're comparing them in a way. Do you get me?
What you're saying.
So I don't know. I'm a little bit tempted. I don't know. I really don't know. I wouldn't be mad either way, if I'm being honest. Was it my or your category?
It was my category.
Well, then go ahead. You pick.
Oh man. I'm just gonna say 4 because.
Or we just cheat and add 3.75, like super cheat.
Screw it. You know what? Do it. I'm doing it. 3.2.
Do it. Because it's just not fair, I think, to.
There you go.
the number 3.5 wouldn't do the job, I don't think, or nor would 4 in a way.
Okay, your turn. Value floor.
I mean, this is just low as fuck.
Yeah, it sure is.
You don't hit shots. Like, if anyone who's seen my Widowmaker knows how little value you can get paying this hero.
I have a distinct memory when I was like platinum. No, when I hit diamond. I remember for the first time of like, I actually have to listen to that Widowmaker ultimate. You know, like when I was in like gold and like silver and even like low platinum, passion, whatever the heck she says. I'm not French, sadly, but I just didn't care. I was like, okay, that's nice. You know, you have fun doing with whatever you're doing. Like,
background music.
Exactly. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that matters. Oh shoot, you know, like, so value floor is not very high because even at like plat, like there's so many ways of like it takes so much. Like she's not a bad hero right now, but there's like she's certainly not like, oh, that hero's great, we're gonna win, we got a Widow, you know. I don't know. I think.
Well, yeah, you don't just pick Widow and win. You have to pick Widow and be really good to win.
Exactly.
So there's not like an inherent value of just pick. Again, I think the hero would give you value. I think that's what I understand when I think value floor. It's like there's things you could just do with this hero that will get you value. That's not really the case of Widowmaker.
My only caveat, like devil's advocate with your one here, is we look at the other ones here. So we've got Sombra, Doomfist. The difference between, I would say, Widow is the fact that, in some maps she's not great, but on some maps you do a lot, even if you're bad.
That's true.
So
there's an argument for 1.5
because there's just certain maps where like you don't even have to hit many shots. You can just kind of clickety-click shoot, you know, Reinhardt's butt cheeks, and you're still scaring people, you know.
Yeah, you're zoning them in a way that Sombra doesn't.
Let's say if you're playing her at her skill floor, you do 1.5. But if like it's a tracer argument. If you're competent at the hero, then yeah, you'll do all right. You'll do all right. But if you're anywhere not competent, you're just going to be absolute trash.
Yeah, I think that's
actually
a fair
by
argument.
That argument, should we make her a 2? Go back and look at our tracer card.
No, I think there's more in Tracer's kit that could help you get value.
That's
like
fair.
I think there's like more mobility, you know, there's the pulse. Again, how badly can you just screw up infra size, right? Like Pulse Bomb, at worst, you could just stick it on tanks, right? And it's like a little bit easier to do.
That's fair.
Whereas like you can just use people just use wall hack sometimes and it goes to waste completely.
There's a certain unnamed, very well-known Widowmaker player who I stopped into this person's stream, and how they were using wall hacks maybe want to gouge my eyes out, and this player is higher ranked. I'm like, do you just not think before you press? Okay, anyway, that was a side note. Ceiling, I think, like, obviously it's like this one's a little trickier to me because like I would say actually 3.5 actually here, because I think she is more like, this is where the map and meta starts to hit Widow harder than it does other heroes, like even more than Tracer. I say 3.5 because like even a really good Widow is going to struggle against a good dive, if that's what's meta. A really good Widow is going to struggle against Brawl on a good Brawl map. Like she's a lot more limited with what she can do in terms of raw value.
Yeah, I agree. I remember with the Starlight, I think we spoke about like there were metas that weren't meant for Tracer, and you were still picking Tracer. Like, you know, people were playing like Reinhardt and still picking Tracer because there's just like sometimes there's nothing to stop her. Like even in a bad comp, she still works. Whereas, there are just maps. There are just times when you wouldn't actually pick Widowmaker. Obviously, the frustration is that there are times when you can do nothing about the enemy Widowmaker. Right? I think that's one thing that's unique about her, is that. Yes, like Tracer can be oppressive, but I think there's things you could do to mitigate her value. Whereas like sometimes it doesn't matter the best of intentions. If there's Widowmakers clicking heads, you're done.
Widowmaker is definitely hit hard by maps and metas, but she also, like we said, benefits immensely from maps and metas as well. Like you can very few heroes can you quote unquote solo carry with, but Widowmaker sometimes if it's a favorable map and a favorable point, you can just solo carry, and they're like it's just over. So 3.5. Certainly the score I would give.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Okay. Buffs and nerfs. I don't know.
Cool mama.
Jeez, this is right up there with Sombra. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's really tough. I think Sombra is probably like more clear even in like
well,
with something needs to be changed about
your
the
suggestion.
hero.
It was clear, yeah.
Whereas with Widowmaker, I'm like, it's like so easy to dumpster this hero, right? Like it's so easy to just dumpster this hero. Um, it, but at the same time, like we said, she can just take over, and it becomes like if you don't have a Widowmaker, you
Yeah.
lose.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is. Unfortunately,
I
I'm
don't
not
either.
like a Widowmaker player, and I don't know what is a fair
Yeah.
balance between keeping her as a strong sniper who can, just delete people with
Yep.
skill, and being so obnoxious that well, if they have a Widowmaker and you don't,
Yeah.
you lose.
I don't know. I think one of the suggestions I saw a long time ago, which might still be relevant, is increasing the charge time between shots. If you do that, maybe you can bring back her HP. But ultimately, the one shot mechanic is just going to continue to be a controversy as long as this game's alive. And you could make an argument for it being there. You can argue for it not being there. I don't think anybody would be happy. And I think buff nerf is just is too basic right now. So definitely, you quadruple your asterisks. Just the entire line is just 12 asterisks in a row. So I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, if Bastion has 2 asterisks, then I think Widowmaker just like 4 asterisks. We don't
extra.
know. There's a lot of suggestions in chat, but I genuinely don't know. That's the thing, right? Some people are saying like lower her headshot multipliers. Someone like you said, people mention lower the charge time. I've heard people mention in the past that her headshot should do different amount of damage to different roles. So like less damage to tanks, and still fine to DPS. But there and theoretically, I'm like, yeah, okay, well, they sound like good ideas, but I don't know if they would help.
I don't know. I don't know.
So I don't know.
Last one, fun against probably 1.5. I'd probably say, or a 2. Like the only like consolation is that, hey, Widow took some skill to make that shot, right? But obviously the like counterplay there, it's there, like cover corners, know where the Widow is, but it doesn't make it any less frustrating. I wouldn't put. I'm leaning 2 though because of the element of skill and because there is counterplay to it. It's not uncounterable. You can counter it. You just need to. You just have to be aware. And also one other thing, can I interrupt really quick? Is it's also rank specific as well, because the fact that her value floor is so low and her skill floor is so high makes it that she is not, I guess, obnoxious to play against until you get to Diamond Masters Plus on specific points.
Yes, yeah. She's not taking over games in gold. Like, starts to in platinum, but and I think the other thing about it is like, if you died to Widowmaker, there's something you probably could have done. Like at most ranks, once again, you can get to the high ranks where it's like, well, I had to do something eventually, and then she killed me. But like with Hanzo again at 1.5, it's like you could have just been like standing around, and the Hanzo could have meant to hit something else, and in flies the arrow and just domes you. So I think 2 is fun. Although again, you look at it at the face, you're like 2.
Yeah.
Well, it's no fun dying to Widowmaker across the map.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's like, well, okay, fair enough, she hit her shot.
We've learned, if nothing else, that the fun against category has heavy discrepancies on one side or the other. It's like,
oh yeah, it's the ironically, it's like the least important category, and it's the most like controversial in a way.
Because it's like tanks might be fine with it, but supports hate it, or this rank's fine with it, but this rank hates it, and vice versa, and like map specific as well, because it's like it's just like even a platinum Widow is not going to be fun to play against on Junkertown, right? But elsewhere, like you don't,
or Havana,
but you don't care about it. Oh,
geez,
like another great point. But elsewhere, it's not really a concern. But wow, that was, I guess 6 times 17. That's 102. Quite individual scores for 17 different DPS characters. That was a lot of work.
A lot of numbers.
That was fun though.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. That
was really fun.
Let's just overview then. So let's just look over the big highlights, I guess. So the lowest skill floor we're saying is Bastion.
Good. For sure.
I think alongside someone like Junkrat, which I think alongside Junkrat, Reaper, Soldier, I think these are fair, and Torb.
I feel a little guilty about the 1.5 Soldier, but I don't not.
Yeah, actually, looking back at it, he kind of feels a bit rough to those other guys. So maybe 2. Yeah, I think it's a little hard on the old man. Like, he's not Reaper Bastion, is he? Even Torb feels a little bit harsh on him to be put in the same category as like Junkrat.
Yeah.
But, definitely, I think Bastion lowest skill floor. If you were like, if you were like new to Overwatch basically, and you were put in bronze, just this guy, basically. Who's the highest or the lowest? So who's the highest skill floor? So we said obviously down it's Tracer. I think
Yep.
that's fair as well.
Tracer, Widow, Sombra,
Alongside Widow, Sombra. Like these are the
Pharah.
heroes I would. These are the last heroes I would tell like a new player, like
Yeah.
who just wants to
Okay,
get competent at
revisiting
any
Pharah.
hero.
Does Pharah deserve 3 skill floor? Or do you think she's a 2.5? 3 seems high.
Yeah, 3 does seem high. 3 does seem high because you can just fly around and do
You
shit,
could just
can't
spam.
you?
I think
2.5
part
could
of
be
part
fair,
of our
I think.
argument was like some maps she's gonna be really tricky to get value out of, but I'm still not sold on the 3.
Yeah, I think 2. Is there anyone else who's 3?
No, she's on par with Echo with skill floor.
Yeah, it's interesting because we don't have a 3. It would be interesting to have a comparison point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she is kind of more difficult than Echo though, probably, right? That's probably why we bumped her to 3. There's like less stuff you can rely on. But then again, also
Echo's busted.
go ahead.
You know what I'm saying? Because like we're confusing the value and skill for like Echo. You can make a million errors. It just doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think like we expect the skill floors to be the same because Echo's just stronger, and so of course she's gonna feel a little easier.
That's true.
So that's my take.
Yeah, I think that's a fair take. It is a bit odd that we don't have a 3, but okay, fair enough. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It would be in other categories, I suppose. Okay, so then who has the lowest skill ceiling?
Bastion's only 1.5. I
think we said. Yeah.
Junkrat 2. Reaper 1.5. Uh-oh. Symmetra with a 1.5 as well.
Yeah. I wonder if is Reaper a little bit low at 1.5 or is he about right? I guess the argument we were making is that, and I guess again, if you're thinking big picture, you said, you know, Moira is kind of the one, right, where it's like, you figured this hero out. If you're playing her competently, you figured it out, right? I'm sure there are Moira mains who are saying load. I mean, and I guess there is an argument there as well. We're straying, we're bleeding into a completely whole other thing. But you know, they would say there's a lot of fade tech that you could do. I'm
biting my tongue currently right now. I just don't make me bleed my mouth too much, please. Yeah.
So, I mean, with Bastion being a 1.5, which I think is fair, there is like, you know, of course his kit is straightforward, but I think his positioning requires understanding at the highest level.
And the ultimate as well.
And the ultimate. I think Reaper, by that hallmark, is okay. Is he? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
He's
the
okay.
The only argument I think you could make is that for him having a 2 is that mechanics is actually a little bit more difficult than you think it is in close ranges. Like there's a lot of times at the pro level you'll see a Reaper make a headshot and you're like, how did he do that? Like how did he make that flick? Like because you're up close, but also everybody's moving faster when you're up close. So I
wouldn't be mad actually seeing that Torb is 2.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right, your man's getting 2. Oh no, did I delete it? Oh, did I do SVB? There it is.
Okay,
Control Z.
Yeah,
we're good. All right.
Yeah,
I'm used to OBS. OBS doesn't have a Control Z. I can't tell you how much that grieves me.
I know.
Okay.
Okay, so then and who has the highest skill ceiling? Obviously, it's the Tracer and 3.82 Widowmaker.
Yeah. Sombra 3.5 as well.
Sombra 3.5, which I think is fair. Like again, if you were to think like what are the hardest heroes to master,
Genji
these are the ones that I would.
Doomfist,
and also Doomfist, which I think is fair. Genji Doomfist is also fair, I think, because these are like
immense tech.
Really, really like you have to throw yourself into these heroes to actually master them.
Exactly. Value floor.
Okay, so value floor. Where's the lowest?
Is 1.5.
I think Sombra. We said I think Doom and Widowmaker and Sombra. Yeah, that's right. Sombra's right.
Ridiculous. Sombra was even lower than him, which I think is fair. I think
it is. I think this is the one hero in the game who's like you could just pick and do nothing.
I agree.
Like actually nothing.
I agree.
So I think that's fair. And then the highest is Bastion, which is also fair. I think like if you just picking this hero and you know going into your turret form. You've kind of got it. You know, you're doing your job.
Junkrat as well.
Yeah, Junkrat high, which is also fair.
Soldier,
I think Reaper. Also Reaper, which is also fair. like you're doing your job with these heroes once you get close
Soldier
enough.
And Tor both relatively high with 3s as well, which
I think is fair. Like they output near max value of their kits very frequently, basically.
And they have good ultimates in lower ranks as well.
Yes. Okay. And then value ceiling again. Going back, Bastion is just funny because he just stands out as this huge outlier all the time.
Sore thumb, man. It's like, where did this hero come from?
Yeah, it really tells you this hero is like, just not right. Something's not right about this hero. Which, again, I'm pretty sure Junkrat mains would be like, it's so hard, man, a GM to get value out of this guy.
Well, keep in mind at this point we're talking about like, well, it really is. It value ceiling is like how high of a rank. Like we could put value ceiling as like how high can you climb with this hero? Consistently.
Yeah, if you one trick this hero, how are you gonna do? And I think again like Bastion, Doomfist, Junkrat, these are the like heroes you would least want to one trick. Symmetra on 2, which is probably fair.
I look at
like slightly easier.
I look at Ashe and I'm like, like she's a high 3. I see she's at 3, but I'm like 3.2, 3.1.
Is there a 3.5 in value ceiling that we have to compare to?
There's gotta be, right? Is there?
No, I don't think so. We could Widowmaker 3.5. Yeah.
I have a hard time putting her on the Widowmaker's level though. I feel like she's another one of those awkward ones, high 3.
Yeah, and again, that's like if you gave her a Mercy Pocket, then she's kind of there. But
the only thing that she's got going for her is she's just so terribly flexible. Like she just isn't ever a bad pick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would be tempted 3.5, but I don't. It's here or there. It's like very marginal.
That was the Widowmaker exception. We can't make too minis, otherwise we'll have to go through and do them all over again.
True.
Bob's nerfs. I think we don't need to go over that one because that's not really comparable. But I want to do the fun against that. That's the one we can actually compare. Bastion, the one.
So Bastion again. I mean, it just never feels good. I don't think that's the thing. It's like you're never like, oh yeah, that was a satisfying engagement when you get mowed down by a Bastion.
The way you're describing these is just, it's poetic. Oh, that feels good. What a satisfying engagement by the Bastion. Why don't you just sub-alert that for you guys? Oh, what a satisfying engagement by the enemy Bastion. That would just be excellent.
I know.
Oh my gosh. Okay, Hanzo.
And then again, Sombra as well.
Okay, Hanzo and Doom look really low. I'm unsure.
I mean, Doom has to be low because just the number of complaints. Just the number of complaints.
Maybe we could bump Hanzo up to 2.
Hanzo could be bumped, but
because I'm like,
the tree trunks don't be fun.
Yeah, but like, would you rather have a Hanzo in the enemy team or a Junkrat spamming choke kind of a thing? You know what I'm saying? Like how? I don't know.
Honestly, me personally, I'd probably rather have the Junkrat because I can outplay that guy much easier than the Hanzo.
I think the bias that we're coming at this with is that we're used to playing Hanzo in higher ranks, and we're like, oh yeah, that guy's scary, but you don't really see Junkrat. You know, whereas do you think a lower rank is more scared of a Junkrat spamming a choke or a Hanzo? So
they're definitely more scared of the Junkrat.
So it's like they're more frustrated, and the Riptire as well. Like Riptire is not a fun ultimate to play into at all.
We might need to bump some of the fun categories because we're low on the fun right now. I mean, Echo. I think Echo is more like you. I'd rather die to an Echo than a Hanzo.
Clear, though,
even though.
So really quick, one thing that we have to understand with the bias is that certain heroes are naturally biased. We talked about how tanks are naturally biased to higher skill ceilings, higher skill floors, right? I think with DPS, people are less happy to die to DPS. Ironically, the DPS category is also the most frustrating to die against. Dying to Winston, dying to D.Va, dying to Zarya, dying to Reinhardt, dying to Ana, dying to Bap. Like, those aren't particularly frustrating heroes to die against. And those just happen to be the tank and support categories. So I don't know if that's like psychological or design-wise, but it does look like the DPS category is like, man, we really hate dying to these guys. Which is weird.
It's just, maybe, it's a lot of psychological element of like who's behind them as well. Like them filthy DPS mains coming in and assassinating me.
I don't know.
Also, I guess with tank, like usually you have to go pretty far in position to like die to certain tanks.
That's true. It's kind of like, oh, I messed up. Although there's a couple exceptions with supports. Nobody likes dying.
Like Roadhog. Okay, but that's why Roadhog is like one, right? Because it's like
and you ready? I'm about. Maybe this is just me, but Valking Mercy. Oh my gosh, I want to punch the wall.
Oh, there's like it's like the worst feeling dying to any Mercy but Valking Mercy, because you should die. That's the sad
she's
part. It's
good.
like
She's strong.
you should die because it's like she's like the best duelist in the game. It's just like impossible to hit flying moth in your face with like machine gun Glock.
It's awful.
But at the same time, you're really salty.
Yeah, it's
that this bitch has used her whole ult on
yeah,
you.
get
like,
out of here.
You could have done
Dude,
so much with this. You could have healed your entire team, and you chose to do this. You chose violent.
Person, but I'm the guy. We'll be stacking quick play with friends or something, and somebody Valk Mercies at me, and I'll be playing Zen, and I'll get the kill, 1 out of every 4 times or something, and I'm gonna type in match chat. I'm gonna do it. I have no regrets. Sit. Yeah, the sit. Or even better, the capital L. Just L. That's even better.
L.
Like it just really gets me. Anyway, but we're getting off topic. Bump Hanzo or leave Hanzo?
Yeah. We could bump him to 2. We could bump him to 2. Even though I personally am a bit like. Oh, it's alright. You go
backspace.
Even though personally I hate dying to the tree trunks, but again, you're right. There's like a bias of rank there, where like I'm dying to a better caliber of Hanzo as opposed to the Junkrat.
Because you look at that, the value ceiling there, and then you look at the Junkrat's value ceiling. Like there's the clear discrepancy there, and it's going to naturally lead to that bias. But yeah, it's hard to kind of keep all these factors.
I think it's fair that Mei is low as well, because like nobody likes dying to, like the way you die to Mei is slow, painful death. Isolated but from your teammates, so it just feels very shit.
It would be 1 if this was arcade free for all. It would be 1. Shame on you guys if you guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually a good factor, because it's like whoever plays the like deathmatch OP heroes, and it's like you play Roadhog, you just got no honor. You play Moira and you kill me in deathmatch. Like I don't even count that. I don't even count.
It's awful. It's awful. Oh my gosh. I guess that's it, man. Is there anything else?
No, that's a good overview of like what we did.
Moly. I'm thinking I want to dig up a small streamer to host. Would you be down for that, or do you have somebody in mind already?
Yeah, I'm always down for it. Let's go for it. We can simultaneously if you want.
I was thinking. Like we can hit him with a 1-2 punch. I'll host him with my 4. You host him with your 400. It'll be perfect. I'm trying to see if there's anybody. Is there anybody in your? I always try and prioritize people in my or your Discord. I don't see anybody in my Discord that's streaming right now. Do you have any in yours?
Not that I can see.
I might have
right
found
now.
one. Oh, I got one.
Oh yeah, drop me
Viva La Alice. She's got some funky hair going on here, so I'll.
Oh, you might need to copy paste that to me in the Discord.
I'll send it to you over Discord. So this is what we got. She's got looks like diva ears, blue and pink hair. She's playing Ana. Like this is like it couldn't get better. It's gonna be fun. All right, so I'm gonna toss host. I'm gonna thank you, SVB, so much for I guess collabing with me. That was a lot of fun, a lot of talking. My mouth hurts. I'm gonna go and lie down and put a washcloth over my head. Too much talking about Bastion. But as always, I really appreciate you coming on, dude. Or I guess like mutually coming on. Guys, if you guys haven't checked out SVB in my chat, !SVB, phenomenal educator, I say. Educator, content creator, has worked his way up from literally nothing and has earned every single bit of respect he's gotten. Been a pleasure, man, as always. Thank you so much.
No, thank you very much, man. Likewise, it's been an absolute pleasure. So guys, thank you to Spilo for this idea. Like it was all his idea, all his mods executed it. So big shout out to him. Are you gonna put this on YouTube for your?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to cut out the part where I disappear from stream. But yeah, the goal is to get that up on YouTube.
Well, if you need to take if you need to take that part from my stream, go ahead. But yeah, thank you so much for organizing. And guys, I'm not gonna steal the content. It was his idea, so go check if you want to watch. Like if if you miss some part, you want to watch it all. Go watch Spilo and watch it back. If you're desperate for my take, I mean, you can check out the VOD and. You can see it, but if you're desperate to watch my face as he said things, then that's so be it. But yeah, please check out Spilo. Again, ! Spilo, same works in my chat. Just an awesome dude. Really a nice guy, I think, which is underappreciated when people talk about who to recommend and stuff. Just like a nice person is really nice to have. So really nice guy, but on top of that, awesome coach. As everyone says, like I can't believe that Spilo isn't coaching in Overwatch League, but we know the story will happen or nearly happen, so unlucky. But I hope you continue to make the fantastic content you are making, and I hope you continue to, be out here making this good shit. So thanks, man. Thanks for the invite.
I'll keep in touch, man. We'll have to do this again. All right, chat.
Absolutely. Now let's go say hello to Viva La Alice. All right, peace out, guys. I'm 4 seconds slack in raid, but yes.